I wonder what that is. Oh, that's a video I was watching. Okay. Hey, there we go. There's a notification on YouTube. Hello, everybody. We are getting those notifications. There goes the Ben Shader, aka Trendy Nay, which is one of my other channels on Facebook. If you follow that channel, it will literally let you know when I go live. That channel is the at Nay's Garden Show channel. Feel free to follow that one. I'll retweet that because we are live. We've got a really big show planned for today. It's gonna be huge. I'm gonna take some time to just
Caleb Sliger.
Caleb, how's it going, buddy?
Nay.
Let me do my SEO really quick. I'm remembering that. Yes. Okay, let's edit this video. Edit video, put in the SEO. It only takes a second. There it is. Hit save. And in the SEO, I should probably add Humanist Report.
Good morning.
Hey, buddy. Yeah, Humanist Report. And anything else I want to put in? Twitter.
Caleb Sliger.
Files. Twitter
Good
files.
morning,
Save.
buddy.
Okay. Caleb, good morning. Steve Running, good morning. Good morning, everybody. Fantastic.
Cassie.
Hey, Cassie.
Good morning.
Hello. So, you guys see my investment is underwater, 33.3. Remember, I put in 34.5. So it's underwater. The value is underwater. Should I take all my money out? Should I take all my money out? No, of course not. I'm going to leave it all sitting in there. I'm going to wait. I'm going to be patient. But what I would just tell you guys quickly is the market's down. If you've been waiting, if you're one of those people that's just got more patience than any person I've ever met in my entire life, well, now might be your time. But, you know, I've been saying this for weeks. This is a great buy-in opportunity if you've been looking to get into crypto and you haven't done it yet. What are you waiting for, man? Because this is it. I know you keep hearing that from me over and over again. It's kind of redundant, silly, but I wouldn't be doing you right if I wasn't telling you what I really believed, and that's what I really believe, so I'm going to tell you again. If you're looking to get into crypto, look at it now. Okay, now, let's start the show, man. I'm kind of excited because I've got for you something that somebody like the Humanist Report isn't willing to show his audience, but of course I'll show you the whole Senate hearing. I watched the whole Senate hearing this morning. It was over 2.5 hours. I watched the whole thing before the show. I just had to see what the big deal was about, you know. I knew I'd heard the bits and pieces and the releases of certain aspects of the reporting. Hey, Josh. I had heard that Matt Taibbi was given all this information by Elon Musk, and that what he just found out was that the United States government and various agencies were manipulating the narrative on Twitter, you know, and we were all more than aware of that. You know, we've seen the manipulation. People have reported on it. I've been manipulated plenty. You know, people don't see me. And it's not like I'm some big political figure, but there's lots of big political figures out there who they get taken off as well, and they get subverted. And a lot of this had to do with the big accounts being subverted, information being inserted where it shouldn't have been, you know, and it was a really eye-opening experience for me. Unfortunately, for someone like Mike Figueredo, whatever his name is, Humanist Report, for someone like him, it just reinforces his narrative, which is the Debbie Wasserman Schultz narrative, which is that everything the Democrats do is right, everything the Republicans do is wrong, you know, blue good, red bad, he's a team player and he's a shit lib. And boy, oh boy, did he expose himself on this one. Right from the bat, let me just say, right off the bat, man, he made a title on a tweet, and it started out with the word oof. You might notice that somewhere else, because I almost copied his title word for word, and all I did was I took out Matt Taibbi's name and I inserted Mike Figueredo's name, and used all of his words. Humanist Report, Grift blows up, right? Let me get the rest of that title. Blows up in humiliating fashion enduring massive ratio on Twitter. So when you get ratioed, and I've been ratioed before and it's no fun, what that means is that more people disagree with you, and so you might get a whole bunch of views on a tweet like he did. He got thousands, right? But he only got 200 or 300 likes from all of his massive followers. Oh, that's weird. Okay. Let me find where I was here. I got a little lost. Huh. I don't see any of this stuff anymore. This happens all the time. I get so confused. It's like, huh. Oh. I'm sorry this is taking so long. Scrolling. This guy tweets a lot. Holy shit. Okay. Oh, here it is. Oof. Found it. So, Matt Taibbi did a great job with the Twitter files. He did a great job. He exposed a lot. This is the reporting done by Mike over on Humanist Report, which is just awful, man. Because he's a shit lib, and now everybody knows it. He can't hide it anymore.
But a deeper concern that I have relates to the ethics of how journalists receive and present certain information. Journalists should avoid accepting spoon-fed, cherry-picked information if it's likely to be.
Oh, no. Debbie Wasserman Schultz. Talking about spoon-fed, cherry-picked information. Wasn't it spoon-fed, cherry-picked information that you spread out over the DNC to subvert Bernie Sanders' election? Didn't you say things like he was a socialist and he was going to make everybody a communist, and you were lying and you were saying he was an asset of Russia as well? So you don't get to say that without me calling you out on your bullshit. Of course, Humanist Report's going to sit there with his finger up his nose, and he's not going to say anything about this. But that's why you watch me, and you don't watch that cuck.
Incomplete or designed to reach a foregone, easily disputed, or invalid conclusion. Would you agree with that?
I think it depends.
Really? You wouldn't agree that a journalist should avoid spoon-fed, cherry-picked information if it's likely?
Do you see how she's engaging him in conversation right now? It's just like a normal back and forth. Watch what she does to him.
To be slanted, incomplete, or designed to reach a foregone, easily disputed, or invalid conclusion?
Congresswoman, I've done probably a dozen stories involving whistleblowers. Every reported story that I've ever done across 3 decades involves sources who have motives. Every time you do a story, you're making a balancing test between the public
reclaiming
interest.
my time. Thank you very much.
No. Not reclaiming your time, you fucking bitch. You ask him a question and you let him answer. You don't reclaim your time when he's answering what you just asked. So now she's being hostile, right? She's treating him like he's a hostile witness, and she's being a fucking cunt, like she's always been. So watch her be a cunt some more.
Very much. I ask you this because before you became Elon Musk's hand-picked journalist, and pardon the oxymoron, you stated that.
So she's saying that him being a journalist is an oxymoron. She's saying the fact that he picked you, so you're no longer a journalist because you were picked. Really? Huh. It's weird. Sometimes people want to go public with something, and they'll be like, but I'm only going to go public with Barbara Walters, or I'm only going to go public with Larry King, or I'm only going to sell this on a political show. I'm going to go on Face the Nation, and I'm going to announce my presidency, my candidacy for president, things like that. This is common practice, and she's acting like she doesn't understand how reporting works.
This on Joe Rogan's podcast about being spoon-fed information, and I quote, "I think that's true of any kind of journalism," and you'll see it behind me here. "I think that's true of any kind of journalism. Once you start getting handed things, then you've lost. They have you at that point, and you got to get out of that habit. You just can't cross that line. Do you still believe what you told Mr. Rogan? Yes or no? Yes or no?"
Yes.
Good.
That's it. So that is the big own. Understand, there's 2.5 hours of testimony. And then this little cunt's going to come on and try to say, "Oh, look, Debbie Wasserman Schultz is the Incredible Hulk, and Matt Taibbi, oh, he's such a bad person. Oh, and look at Debbie Wasserman Schultz just owned that guy so bad." Is that what you guys got out of that? Of course not. I'm not going to wait for any answers from y'all. I'm just going to say, of course not. It's silly, right? It's stupid. So let's see. I'm just kind of curious where this is going to go from here, because I haven't watched this yet.
The worst person you know just made a great point. That exchange took place today during the House Judiciary's Select Subcommittee on the Weaponization of the Federal Government, and it marks the second time that Congress has held a hearing on Elon Musk's Twitter file.
I've got a question. Why is his body so small? Dude, why is your body so small? I'm just kind of curious. Why is your body so small? Are you a hand puppet? Because you look like one. You look like a hand puppet. Is somebody's hand up your ass making you talk right now? Because it just kind of appears that way to me. Oh, fucking sock puppet? Huh.
Now, what we just watched was absolutely brutally humiliating
Josh
for Matt
G.
Taibbi, someone who I...
He's got the big head mod going on.
It was at the big head mod. It was absolutely brutally humiliating. Do all of you feel Matt Taibbi's brutal humiliation from that clip? That he chuckled at Debbie Wasserman Schultz. Do you understand what the big own was here? He was talking about another guy, and if you listen to the whole thing,
Stephen Running.
he's not right. He's not going to let
No.
you hear the whole thing, but I will. I'll let you hear the whole thing. He's talking about a situation where a guy was manipulated by, a foreign government or whatever, or actually our government, I believe it was, to release certain information regarding whatever. And he said, what he was basically saying was, when you become somebody's go-to, for the Friday afternoon news dump, and it's always the same reporter, yeah, that's a problem, right? Well, this was one time, Elon Musk wanted to find a reporter who he trusted. He sought out Matt Taibbi. He gave Matt Taibbi the information, and Matt reported on it. That is the big own, is that, Matt Taibbi was selected by Elon Musk. How dare he accept that job? Where are your standards, oh good sir? How dare you? How dare you do such blasphemous activities by doing your job and reporting on stuff that Elon Musk wanted you to look into? As much as I can't stand Elon Musk, I can't see any wrong here, and I definitely don't see an own. The only thing I see getting owned is this fucking big head puppet man that his audience is eviscerating him by ratioing his big-headed, stupid little body all over Twitter. Now, the reason I have to use such silly words is because YouTube won't let me say the things that I really want to say, and I don't get to call him all the words that I used to call him, but I highly recommend go check out some of my other reporting on this guy. You're going to get an earful, I promise you, because I've always seen him for what he is. I've always known him. I have this thing. You don't have to reveal yourself to me completely. You don't have to pull away the curtains. You know why? Because I set them bitches on fire as soon as I see you. There ain't no curtain for me, bro. I got laser eyes. I can see right through you, and I've seen right through you ever since you started, you little cuck bitch. I've always seen through you. It's too bad that you're the one that ends up, with the big polished, channel that people go flocking to because you look like you're actually putting on a show. Whereas me, I'm just keeping it real, and not too many people want to just keep it real for 2 hours, during a podcast with somebody like me. And that's cool. This is what this is what the average YouTube viewer would rather watch. I'm sure he's got a whole lot more subscribers than me. But you're going to get the truth out of me, and you're going to get left-wing narrative and bullshit and lies from this guy. Debbie Wasserman Schultz's butt boy. That's who he is. Debbie Wasserman Schultz's butt boy.
I used to respect. He got exposed as the unprincipled, careerist opportunist that he is by Debbie Wasserman Schultz, of all people, one of the most corrupt, unprincipled, careerist members of Congress. And when you compare both Debbie Wasserman Schultz and Matt Taibbi, just to be clear, without question, I think that
Bear
she's done
market
far
money.
more harm than he could ever dream of doing as a
Nick.
pseudo-journalist. But with
Yeah, then what the fuck are you doing, Mike? What are you doing then? If she's the big evil monster and he's the one that's done the most good for all of humanity, what are you fucking choosing her side for? On one issue, on one little tiny smidgen of video. The only thing that you could cherry pick, the only thing that you could spoon feed to your audience to try to make your point, and you failed miserably, Mike. You failed. Good morning, bear market. I hate you. What's up, buddy?
that being said, nothing about what she said there
You were right.
was wrong.
Bear
In
market
fact,
was right.
It gets
Bear
even
market
worse
money.
because she goes on to
You and
explain
tell him that.
why Matt
I'll tell him
Taibbi
like you
betrayed
told
his
me the
own
market was gonna
principles.
crash.
And again, what she says here is 100% correct, and Matt Taibbi knows it, but refuses to admit it.
No, what she says there was not 100% correct. It was unrelatable. It was a quote that Matt Taibbi had made on the Joe Rogan show. It wasn't talking about doing one report, which is all it was. He got information. That's what reporting is. And it's just so weird that he sees this as some kind of a sellout or some kind of an own. And it's not. I'm going to let this guy cuck off, here for the next, 8 minutes, just to prove my point. I'm offering him $1,000 to come on my show and read through every single goddamn response of his fucking ratio shit tweet, his shit post that's gonna ruin him. Come on my show, bro. $1,000.
Now, you crossed that line with the Twitter files.
No.
Elon Musk, it's my time. Please do not interrupt me. Elon
It's my time. Don't interrupt you. Reclaiming my time. Do you hear what she's being a fucking cunt to Matt Taibbi? She should be asking questions and being polite. That motherfucker put his life on the line doing what he did. And she doesn't appreciate it at all because he's exposing cunts like her for manipulating social media.
Musk spoon-fed you his cherry-picked information, which you must have suspected promotes a slanted viewpoint, or at the very least generates another right-wing conspiracy theory. You violated your own standard, and you appear to have benefited from it. Before the release
This is
of
hilarious.
of the emails in August of last year, you had 661,000 Twitter followers. After the Twitter files, your followers doubled, and now it's 3 times what it was last August.
Straw man. So what? He's more popular now. He actually did something that made him famous. What's your point, you dumb bitch? Oh, that's right. You don't have a point. You're just character assassinating him. That doesn't work. It doesn't work for me. It doesn't work for my audience. But you know who it works for? It works for fucking Mike from Humanist Report because he's a cuck bitch for the left.
I imagine your
I can see the
Substack
truth,
readership,
guys. He
which is a
can't.
subscription, increased significantly because of the work that you did for Elon Musk.
If you guys
Now,
appreciate
I'm
the
not
fact that I
asking
can
you to
see
put
the
a dollar
truth,
figure on it,
please
but
share
it's
this
quite
on
obvious
Twitter.
that you've profited
Please share
from
this
the
on
Twitter
Twitter.
files.
Send it to
You hit the
Humanist
jackpot
Report.
on that
Send it
Vegas
to the
slot
fucking
machine to
cunt.
which you
Send it to
referred.
everybody
That's
on
true,
Twitter.
isn't it?
Get some more people here.
I've also
So they can hear some
reinvested
actual
a lot.
truth.
No. Is it true that you have profited since you were the recipient of the Twitter files? You've made money.
Who cares?
Yes or no?
I
Very
think it's
simple
probably a wash, honestly.
No, you have
He's
made
giving
money
her,
that you
see,
did not have before.
and he's
correct?
giving her a hard time because she's giving him a hard time. And this doesn't look like an own at all. It just looks like he's playing cat and mouse with her, and he's just fucking with her right now. And she's the one that's getting owned. She's the one with Joe Rogan's face behind her, looking like a dumb bitch. Hilarious.
But I've also spent money that I didn't have
Okay.
before. I just hired a whole group of people to
Patently
investigate.
obvious answer, reclaiming my time.
Reclaiming my
Attention
time.
is a powerful drug. Eyeballs,
Dude,
money,
you
prominence.
fucking cunt. You're not reclaiming your time. You asked him a question. He was answering it. He wasn't talking over you. You're not reclaiming your time. The only reason you keep saying I'm reclaiming my time is so that you can sound like a little fucking bitch. And that's all you sound like.
Attention, all of it points to problems with accuracy and credibility. And the larger point, which is social media companies are not biased against conservatives, and if anything, they ignored their own policies by allowing Trump and other MAGA extremists to post incessant lies, endangering public safety and even our democracy.
Yeah, well, you posted incessant lies about Bernie Sanders, and you endangered our democracy by subverting his election, you fucking cunt, so fuck you.
Hypocrisy is the hangover of an addiction to attention.
That was just brutal. Matt Taibbi violated his own principles by letting...
How can he say that that's brutal? And I can look at it, and all of you can see exactly what it is as I portray it to you. Nobody's arguing with me in the chat at all. Nobody's trying to stand up for fucking fathead. Funny, right?
Letting Elon Musk
What is wrong
spoon-feed
with
him
your head,
cherry-picked
dude?
information also he can further his own career.
Did you hook a tire pump up to it this morning before you left? I mean, your head's all big. It's so weird. You got this scrawny little body and this big fat head. So weird.
And he wouldn't even fess up to it. He pretended as if the money that he made was a wash since he expanded. Yeah, but you wouldn't have been able to expand in the first place, Matt, had you not sold out to Elon Musk. So to pretend as if you didn't benefit from the Twitter files is one of the most...
So accepting to do some reporting for somebody, that's selling out? I'm going to investigate something for you. Oh, that's not selling out. Selling out is when you go over on Tucker Carlson's show and then you review all of his talking points with him and you make sure you hit all the right notes, and then you go off of his show and you continue to mirror what Tucker Carlson wants you to say. That's Jimmy Dore selling out. Matt Taibbi's not selling out. You're selling out to the left. You're selling out to the shit livery that you subscribe to. And it's hilarious because there aren't a lot of people on Twitter that agree with you, dude. And you've got thousands of viewers, and most of them don't support you anymore. Hey, man, I'm hoping some of those people that want the truth still are going to come over and see me instead of you. Because you don't deserve to have your own audience anymore, and I will gladly take them away from you.
Disingenuous things I've ever seen. And ironically,
You're such
everything
a
that
little
Debbie
pussy,
Wasserman
too.
Schultz said about
God,
Taibbi can apply to her as well. Why does she take money?
No, he's such a little pussy. You know, he's such a little pussy. God damn.
Money from the predatory payday loan industry? Well, because they contribute to her campaign.
Let alone dig a ditch. I wonder if he's ever swept up a fucking floor before in his life. Have you ever picked up a broom, dude, and swept a floor? I'm curious. Do you ever run a vacuum cleaner? Because with those little scrawny arms and that big tilty head, it looks like a balloon head. It doesn't look like you'd be able to make it through the fucking doorways of your own home to do any housework. I don't know how you do it.
They help her get elected and further her own career. Why did she violate the DNC's own charter back in 2016 and sabotage the one candidate that was better positioned to defeat Donald Trump? Well, because she wanted a position in Clinton's administration. The reason why her attack on Taibbi was so powerful, I think, is because she's as conniving and opportunistic as he is.
Bullshit! He reported on some shit that was given to him. How's that conniving? Wow, dude, this guy is fucking he's on the verge of slander against Matt Taibbi. And Matt Taibbi, I mean, I know Mike Figueredo, whatever the fuck his stupid name is, he ain't got no money anyway. But we could wipe him out financially, and that would be fun regardless. Maybe Matt Taibbi should sue him for slander. Huh. He's a legitimate reporter. He doesn't deserve to be called this, have his name dragged through the mud like this in public.
She knows how the game is played. So that's why her exposing him was so humiliating, because she knows
Humiliating. It's so humiliating. Listen to him. This is smug little cunt talking. Are you guys getting out of this what I had no idea? Understand, I haven't watched this yet. I watched the whole hearing, and that prepared me for whatever he was going to say about it. He can't say anything to me about it, because not only is his take wrong, I don't even think he watched the whole thing. He doesn't seem to have a grasp of what happened on that day.
Sausage is made. But when it comes to how biased and selective the release of the Twitter files were, Congressman Connolly's questions to Taibbi were also deeply embarrassing for him. Let's watch.
Let's watch.
Mr. Taibbi, you have said that this isn't really a matter of right or left, that
it's
there
Mr.
are
Cannoli.
lots of different ideological colorations involved in the Twitter files. Is that roughly correct?
Yes.
And Mr. Schellenberg, you would agree with that?
Yes.
So when you release information, have you released any information of, for example, right-wing elements or the Trump White House attempting to moderate content at Twitter?
Yes.
No, not the Trump White House per
Any
se.
re-
Although I did report initially in the first Twitter files that the Trump White House had made requests and had been honored.
Mr. Shulliver?
There you go.
I did not find that.
You haven't found it.
Well, Matt did. Are we gonna ignore what Matt just said? He literally said the Trump administration did manipulate Twitter, and I reported on it. And that guy goes, the other guy, oh, did you? Oh no, right? Weird, right?
So we had a hearing the other day on Twitter, and we had 4 witnesses, 3 for the majority, 1 for the minority, and all 4 testified under oath they had never received a request for content moderation or takedown by the Biden White House, but they did from Donald Trump's White House. And specifically, the case brought up was an exchange between Donald Trump, then President of the United States, and Chrissy Teigen, where he had called her something and she called him something back. I won't repeat it. And this was under oath confirmed. Yeah, that happened. And that the White House shortly thereafter, after Teigen.
And Matt Taibbi just told you that, dude. Why are you acting like he didn't just tell you that? Weird.
Teigen had her email.
You want me to go back to Matt's testimony? Where he said, yeah, the Trump.
Twitter to try to take down the content.
Yeah, Trump did.
You aware of that, Mr. Taibbi?
Taibbi.
Yeah, I've certainly heard that in the news. Yes.
But did you see that email exchange?
No, I have not seen an exchange from the Trump White House.
So
I have seen one from Congressman Schiff and one from Senator Angus King.
Yeah, nice try. We're talking about the Trump White House and people under oath confirming it. And my question is, in the Twitter files, did Elon Musk or Twitter provide you with that exchange?
Bro,
with Chrissy Teigen?
look, man, I don't know everything there is to know about the release of the documents by Elon Musk. I don't trust him at all. And yeah, I would think that he might even be slanted about what he released to Matt. On the same note, the Trump administration began in 2016, if I remember correctly. It ran from 2016 to 2020. They were only given documents from 2019 on. So how is he going to have stuff from the Trump administration early on? I mean, and that could have been when that stuff happened. He didn't have access to it. So this is really interesting. And like I said, I'm not sure this Trump request could have been in 2019, but it could have been in 2016. It could have been in 2017. It could have been in early 2018 before they got any of this information. So once again, it's like Humanist Report didn't watch the whole freaking hearing because he says that in here. He says it explicitly.
No, but that's probably because the searches that I was making.
Well, probably because it didn't confirm the bias.
No, you should have let him finish. He was going to say the same thing that I just said. Probably because, we were only given a certain date range. And if they had given us a longer date range, it would have been like a million freaking emails. And we didn't have the time to go through all that. Who knows? Who knows what the reason was? I mean, maybe it was slanted. Maybe it wasn't. Does that make Matt a bad person? Because the information that was given to him might have been slanted? So Matt's the bad guy here? Oh, that's right, Humanist Report. Matt had no control over the information that was given to him, you fucking idiot.
That this is
God
all
bless
about,
America.
as the gentleman from Texas would say,
Get over it.
left attempting to control content.
I am so glad, and this is going to sound really weird, but I am so glad that the Republicans have the House. I'm so glad. I don't want them to have the fucking Senate, but I'm glad they have the House so that we can have investigations like this, because the left would have never done it. I'm thankful. And I got to also say this. I like the way Kevin McCarthy is running shit. He does a much better job than Nancy Pelosi does. Boom. Shots fired. Come at me. Just telling you the truth, guys. And I've been watching McCarthy. I saw this whole hearing. We might sit through the whole thing on this show. This could be a 4 or 5 hour epic show.
Content and Twitter.
So Connolly just demonstrated that Matt Taibbi was Elon Musk's useful little idiot who willingly promoted a biased partisan narrative.
No, he didn't. He didn't confirm that he was Elon Musk's little useful idiot. He didn't, even though Matt, I believe, is on a show called The Useful Idiots. So, oh, wait. No, is that Pat? I think that's Pat that's the Useful Idiots. No, I think it's Matt Taibbi is the Useful Idiots. And if he was, then guess what you just did? You just fucking promoted Matt Taibbi's show, you fucking idiot.
all for personal gain. And when Connolly tried
All
to get
for
him to
personal
admit
gain.
that Musk hadn't given him the full story about how Trump was also trying to use his power
Top
to
of the
get
hour,
tweets
no longer
removed,
regarding
well,
cannabis.
all
Jimbo, you ready
Taibbi
to
could
smoke?
do
Of
was
course you
invoke
are.
Democrats.
Cheers to everybody in
like
the
the
chat.
hack that he is.
I know you guys aren't.
So it confirms.
I know you guys
that
aren't participating in the chat right now. I know it's because you are all on Twitter retweeting this like crazy to get more people in here that are going to further the conversation. Feel free, send this around Twitter, guys. All right, cheers. No law regarding cannabis.
Daddy Elon Musk only let him see one side of the story, hence why principled journalists wouldn't let powerful people selectively hand them documents in the first place, because
Matt Taibbi just testified that there was evidence that Trump tried to manipulate Twitter. Why does this cuckstick
Nick Brown.
try to act like that never happened?
Morning cheers.
Hey, Nick, what's up, buddy?
you're not getting the full picture as journalists seek to do. And again, I find it sad because Matt Taibbi used to be a good journalist. He was critical of the billionaire class and the establishment.
Yeah, Matt Taibbi used to be a good journalist, but he did one report that I don't agree with, and now he's a bad, bad man, and everybody needs to be against him. What? Even if you agreed with this moron that it was horrible reporting, it's just one report. Let's review Matt Taibbi's body of work throughout his career, you fucking idiot.
But now he's on Team Red, presumably because that's where the money is. And
He's on Team Red now. Oh, wow.
parroting their anti-trans talking points and promoting Matt Walsh's What is a Woman documentary. It's just sad to me, honestly, but...
Okay. That I might have a problem with, and we might have to look into that. So I would have a problem with Matt Taibbi doing a whole What is a Woman thing. I got a problem with that. Who fucking cares what a woman is? Fuck you. It's not an issue. Stop making it a fucking issue. You're making that an issue because you don't like trans people. Don't make it an issue. Let it go, right? So if he's doing that, fuck him.
Sometimes when you violate your own journalistic...
I will give fat head little pig boy 1 point. Because I didn't know that. So pig boy, fat head gets 1 point.
standards, it comes back to bite you in the ass. But lucky for Taibbi, his new right-wing audience isn't going to hold him accountable at all for hypocrisy or even care about principled journalistic ethics so long as he's consistently giving them what they want, which is content reinforcing this narrative that Dems bad and Republicans can do no wrong. But to be clear, I don't think that his recent behavior invalidates the good work that he's done in the past, but certainly going forward, nothing that he says should be taken seriously.
Wow.
The Matt Taibbi of today is...
You literally just said two things that don't comport, you idiot. The first thing he said was, I don't think that this one bad report has anything, as a bad reflection on Matt's work. However, I don't think you can ever take him seriously again as a reporter. What? Those completely contradict each other, you fucking confused little fuck. They don't make sense at all. You don't make sense at all. How do you have so many people watching your show? Because you've got screens behind you? Because you have a little tattoo on your fucking wrist? Is that why people watch you? Because you don't make any sense. That and you're ugly. You're just not, you're not attractive, man. You're an ugly person. I don't even like looking at you. You got a big head, a little tiny body. There's something wrong with you, man. Even your stupid little fucking, the shot of him where it says Humanist Report, he gives himself a big old fat neck. You see that? He ain't got, he's a little pencil neck bitch. I love it. Trying to fucking pump himself up in a fucking, in a fake caricature of himself.
That we had fond memories of. But
what a pussy.
Career-wise, I have no doubt that this decision, his shift to the right, is very lucrative. But when it comes down to...
reporting on something is shifting to the right, guys. I guess I shift to the right when I report on the left on people like him being cucks. I guess I'm shifting to the right. It's so stupid. The comments that are coming out of this guy's mouth hole. I took a cleaner shit this morning.
To morality and ethics, I know Matt Taibbi is too smart to believe his own bullshit, but he's going to have to live with the fact that he chose money over morals. And that's really sad, but this is the lane that he's chosen for himself. This is the lane that a lot of individuals have chosen.
Dude, I'd like to have Matt Taibbi on and be like, hey, welcome to Nate's Garden. You want to get high, bro? Let's jam out a little bit. He plays the drums. I play guitar. I sing. We're going to rock out a song. And let's talk the truth for a change. I couldn't have Matt Taibbi on here. I'm a bitch. I'm a little bitch. He's awesome, though, and I really appreciate what he's done, and I think you guys should see the whole hearing. Because the whole hearing is amazing. And Matt Taibbi was amazing during the hearing as well. Just listen to this. Just listen to this one little chord progression really fast. That's it. That's it. That's it. I just wanted you to hear that one little chord progression. I love that. I love it. Anyway, okay.
The Society of Professional Journalists Code of Ethics asserts that journalists should avoid political activity.
My bad. My bad. That is not it. I shared it. I shared the whole thing. I was going to click on it. Oh, that's right. Then I went to the Mighty Mighty. I'm so goddamn ADHD. That's so funny. I clicked on the Mighty Mighty Monsters. I had to do it. I had to do it.
Is a direction.
Okay, this is a 2.5 hour, and I'm proud of myself. I literally watched all 2.5 hours of this morning, guys. Just so I could be prepared for this show, because I knew we were going to do a long show, and I had a feeling that I was going to want to watch the whole thing again with you guys.
Subcommittee will come to order without objection.
Because it's so long, I'll try not to pause it, okay? Feel free to talk over this one, guys, because it's 2.5 hours. I can always rewind it. Oh, look, Pledge of Allegiance. Isn't that weird? Look, they're pledging their allegiance, guys, to a piece of cloth with fringes on it, with colors and patterns, and they're all standing there, and they're pledging their allegiance to a piece of fucking cloth. Just, they do it all the time, too. It's crazy, right? Fucking crazy.
In the run-up to the
Don't make your kids do that, please.
FBI Special Agent Elvis Chan, in his deposition in Missouri versus Biden.
All right, I'm going to let you watch the intro. I'll be right back, guys.
Repeatedly informed Twitter and other social media platforms of the likelihood of a hack and leak operation in the run-up to that presidential election. He did it even though there was no evidence. In fact, he said in his deposition that we hadn't seen anything, no intrusions, no hack. Yet he repeatedly told him something was coming. Yoel Roth, head of trust and safety at Twitter, testified that he had had regular meetings with the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, the Department of Homeland Security, the FBI, and other folks regarding election security. During these weekly meetings, federal law enforcement agencies communicated that they expected a hack and leak operation. The expectations of a hack and leak operation were discussed throughout 2020, and he was told they would occur in a period shortly before the 2020 presidential election, likely in October. And finally, he said, I also learned in these meetings that there were rumors that a hack and leak operation would involve Hunter Biden. So, what did the government tell him? A hack and leak operation was coming. How often did the government tell him this? Repeatedly for a year. When did the government say it was going to happen? October of 2020. And who did the government say it would involve? Hunter Biden. Now think about it. Government had no evidence of any intrusions, no evidence of a hack and leak, yet for a year they tell Twitter that a hack and leak is coming, it's coming in October, and it will involve Hunter Biden. No evidence, but the FBI knows what's going to happen, when it's going to happen, and who it's going to involve. Now that's amazing. That is amazing to me. Maybe they get the time right. We're kind of used to October surprises every 4 years. So maybe they get the time right, but they got the time, they got the method, and they got the person. That's amazing. It's almost like these guys were clairvoyant. How did they know? How did they know? Maybe it's because they had the laptop, and they had had it for a year. They had the laptop, they knew it wasn't hacked, but that's not what they told Twitter. They didn't tell Twitter that information, and Twitter believed, frankly, everything they said. In those weekly meetings, the FBI had built a cozy relationship with this tech company and others as well, we believe. Emails between the FBI and Twitter began with the greeting, "Hey, Twitter folks, emails that asked Twitter to take down accounts and limit visibility of tweets. The FBI handed out security clearance to folks at Twitter. They communicated with Twitter on the secret teleporter app where messages disappear after a certain length of time. And of course, they paid Twitter $3.4 million. In addition, on August 6, 2020, the FBI briefed Senators Grassley and Johnson, and according to the senator's testimony last month in front of this committee, the briefing was bogus and done so someone could go leak that the briefing had happened and undermine the senator's investigation. In September of 2020, a government-funded think tank gets involved. They do a tabletop exercise. The participants include the New York Times, the Washington Post, and other mainstream media outlets. Facebook is there. Mr. Roth of Twitter is there. The organizer was the former CEO of NPR and the former head of news at Twitter. The mock exercise is hosted by the Aspen Institute. The Aspen Institute, which, by the way, in 2020, their budget was $9.3 million, $5 million from the State Department, $4 million from USAID, almost all their budget. Guess the title. Guess the title of this exercise. The Aspen Digital Hack and Dump Working Group. And guess who the subject was? Guess who the subject was? Hunter Biden. That's amazing.
I'll speed it up.
October 14th, 2020, the New York Post runs the story on the Biden laptop, and Twitter takes it down, even though it was accurate, and even though it didn't violate Twitter's rules. Other social media companies do the same. Mainstream press works to downplay and discredit the story. Finally, as if on cue, 5 days later, on October 19th,
and
51 former Intel officials
Matt's going to be up
signed a
real
letter
soon, guys.
with the now
They
famous
bring
sentence,
him right
"Biden
up.
laptop story has all the classic earmarks of a
Hang
Russian
in there.
information
It's
operation."
Matt's testimony is amazing.
Something that was
It's
absolutely
2.5 hours of
Our government built a
questioning,
cozy
guys.
relationship with big tech.
It's really
They
worth
primed them for a
watching.
hack and leak operation. They funded the think tank, which further primed big
Please
tech
share
and big
this on
media.
social
They
media,
leaked information
especially
to
on
undermine the good
Twitter,
work of 2
with
United
all
States
my
senators.
Twitter following if you
and
can.
then 51 former Intel officials closed
Trying
the
to bring
deal
in as many
with their
people as
letter.
you can, guys.
As Mr. Schellenberger pointed out in his reporting, the information op was run on us, run on we the people. And if that's not the weaponization of government, I don't know what is. I really, I'll get to this in a second, but I want to
The
thank
weaponization of government. Keep
the
that in your mind,
regular
okay? The weaponization of government.
Thank you. Before my opening statement, Mr. Chairman, as a point of order, it's been my understanding that one of the witnesses has, within the last half an hour, released additional information that the Republicans may, and you as the majority,
This woman
may have been able to review
is
and have information about. And if that information is, in fact, going to be used
She's
at this
a
hearing,
subvert.
I just want the point of order
That
to be
woman is a
recognized that,
subvert.
the Democrats have not been able to review
Okay?
or to see
You'll see
any
the
of that
whole
information.
hearing.
Will you be using any of the information that
She's a
has
subvert.
recently been released by... Excuse me? Will you be using any of that information?
We'll be using whatever information our staff has put together for us to use at this hearing.
And
I
have
expect
you
guys to
had
do
that
the same.
information before this hearing began, before today?
We use all information that is given to our staff, and we will use it to make sure we educate the
And
American people.
information that you have not shared with us?
Oh, we think it was posted online.
Within just this half an hour, last 20 minutes, but it's not information
Wait, do
that
you
was
want us to
privy
get,
to us
you want
before
us to get you
that.
a copy of it? Because we can make a
I
copy
think we
for
can
you.
go online and find a copy. We can look on our Twitter accounts and see it, but I just want the point of order that you have not shared any of that with us, and I understand that you may have been looking at this long before today's hearing.
We obtained it at the same time frame that
Excuse
was
me,
posted online.
before we continue, is one of your colleagues trying to speak to me? Or I think this was a conversation between you and me.
I was speaking to a
Right
parliamentarian,
there.
if you don't
Gen-
mind.
Oh, okay.
It's the gentlelady's time.
Okay.
She's
All right,
being
well,
I recognize it for an opening statement.
subversive.
And I had a point of order, which I was
I
asking you to
answered- I
address.
answered your question.
Okay, great.
She's
Now I
acting
will
like a
begin
child
my
now.
opening
She's
statements.
now.
3 weeks ago, House Oversight...
This is the conduct that she introduced into this entire fiasco. It's her. She's the one that started acting like a child, and then everybody starts
It
following.
had this hearing with actual Twitter executives who had actual firsthand knowledge about what happened in 2020. And that didn't go so well for the House Republicans because real evidence showed that there wasn't coordination between Twitter and the federal government as they like the American people to believe, and that all the so-called Twitter files really showed was a discussion on content moderation, and that we only got a fraction of the discussion. So now we're back again, no surprise. What else have they got to talk about? Not what's interested in the American people are interested, not what taxpayer dollars have brought us here to Washington to do. And the Republicans have brought in 2 of Elon Musk's public scribes to release cherry-picked, out-of-context emails and screenshots designed to promote his chosen narrative, Elon Musk's chosen narrative that is now being parroted by the Republicans because the Republicans think that these witnesses will tell a story that's going to help them out politically. On Tuesday, the majority released an 18-page report claiming to show that the FTC is, quote, harassing Twitter. Oh my, poor Twitter. Including by seeking information about its interactions with individuals before us today. How did the report reach this conclusion? By showing two single paragraphs from a single demand letter. even though the report itself makes clear that there were numerous demand letters with numerous requests, none of which we've been able to see, that are more demand letters and more requests of Twitter. In other words, the conclusions are based on a fraction of information out of context, cherry-picked, surprise, just like the Twitter files. The majority conveniently forgot to share with the public that in May of 2022, well before Musk acquired Twitter, the FTC had already fined the company $150 million for failing to safeguard data, users, the American people, other individuals. It's 150 million users. Twitter had not safeguarded them.
Straw manning has nothing to do with what we're talking about at this hearing.
Twitter entered into this consent agreement that required it to make regular reports to the FTC, and the previous consent decree between Twitter and the FTC was entered into in 2011. Elon Musk might not like this requirement, but Twitter had issues with FTC long before Musk bought the company, and there's nothing political about that. We've asked for the full set of documents that Musk must have shared with the Republicans on the committee, but we can draw some logical conclusions from what we have been given. You know what the Republican report actually shows? 2 conclusions. First, the FTC has extraordinarily serious concerns about Twitter's handling of consumers' data, and that there's something going on between congressional Republicans and Elon Musk. Mr. Chairman, Americans can see through this. Musk is helping you out politically, and you're going out of your way to promote and protect him and to praise him for his work. This isn't just a matter of what data was given to these so-called journalists before us now. There are many legitimate questions about where Musk got the financing to buy Twitter. We know for a fact that foreign countries like Qatar, Saudi Arabia,
They were laughing at her.
even Russia and China
The 2 reporters
are
were
investors
laughing at her right
presently
then.
in
I'm
Twitter.
so glad the
Do these
cameras showed their
countries now
faces.
have access to private Twitter user data? What agreements has Elon Musk reached with them?
She's
we know
making
how Elon Musk funded
no
the purchase
sense.
because it's public. Let's look at a slide here. Here's what it shows. Musk got $500 million in financing from Binance. That's in highlight for you.
Binance,
a crypto
you
exchange
idiot.
platform run by Chinese
She
billionaires.
doesn't even know what
That billionaire
Binance is,
described his
guys.
funding as
That's how
a
out
small
of touch she
contribution
is.
to the cause. I don't know
God.
what that cause is. Musk got $1 billion from Larry Ellison, whose super PAC spent millions on Republican candidates last cycle, including election deniers.
Right.
Musk got $375 million
got a lot of
highlighted
money.
here, from Qatar, which has
Got
recently been questioned about its
investors.
lobbying practices. Musk got $700 million from Vi Capital, a secretive investment fund based in Dubai. And more very interesting, as you can see down below,
There's a lot of
the nephew
Arabs
of the
that
Saudi
gave
king is
Elon Musk
Twitter's
a lot
second
of
largest
money.
investor at
What does that have
a
to do with
much
anything
larger
where
amount.
he's got his
And
funding
the chair
from
wants
for
us to think that
Twitter?
Elon Musk is the victim. The chairman wants us to believe that the Republicans are concerned with the federal government unfairly going after Twitter and Twitter unfairly taking down
I'm going to
conservative
stop
posts,
here for 1
just like
second.
we did several weeks.
She's attacking Elon Musk. All Elon Musk did was release a bunch of documents. That's what he did. He released a bunch of documents and let Matt Taibbi and these other reporters go through it all and report on it. She's saying, oh, look at all the money that Elon Musk is getting from Arabs and from Saudis and from Republicans and from these people and that people and blah, blah, blah. Who cares? It's a social media site. Who cares where the money comes from? There's corruption in there. It's from both the Republicans and the Democrats. And guess what? Those files exposed both sides. It exposed everything. You're acting like Elon Musk only grabbed certain things where it sounds like, they didn't have time to go through this stuff. They wanted other people to go through it, so they just grabbed a whole timeline of stuff and threw it at these guys, and these guys had to do all the hard work.
We're going to show that's not what the
How
evidence
much time
shows.
did Elon Musk
I want
have
to
to go
underscore the
through
very
all
real
that
threat
shit,
posed by
you
Twitter
know?
files and by the witnesses in front of
And
us today.
cherry-pick
Here's
and
Joel Roth
spoon-feed.
describing the harassment he and other former Twitter employees
I'd
have
love
faced
to see the
because
method
of the
that
irresponsible
Elon
way
Musk used
in which the
to
witnesses
get
in
all
front of
that
us
information.
and others have released
Maybe
this
have
cherry-picked,
Elon Musk
out of
appear,
context data.
and ask him. She's so pissed. Look at her.
Twitter.
I'm so glad that she's so angry.
The Twitter files, I would note first and foremost, didn't just affect me, but affected much more junior employees at Twitter. Employees as far away as Manila in the Philippines were doxxed, had their families threatened, and experienced harm equal to or greater than what I've experienced. But concurrent with the Twitter files, Elon Musk also made the decision to share a defamatory allegation that I support or condone pedophilia. And this lie led directly to a wave of homophobic and anti-Semitic threats and harassment against me, of which Twitter has removed vanishingly little. And following the Daily Mail's decision to publish where I live, ultimately I had to leave my home and sell it. Those are the consequences.
Okay, that was the Daily Mail. Then they're fucking cunts. I always tell you the Daily Mail are fucking cunts. Don't ever believe or goddamn, you can't trust them for anything, right? Sometimes they might have something accurate, but you never know with the Daily Mail because they're a bunch of fucking cunts. You understand that? The Daily Mail sucks. It wasn't Twitter that doxed you, you fucking piece of shit. So once again, you're straw manning against Elon Musk for something that the fucking Daily Mail cunts did to you. Wow. Look, and she's gonna act all pissed off about
For this
it.
type of online harassment and speech.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, I'm not exaggerating when I say that you have called before you 2 witnesses who pose a direct threat to people who oppose them. It's funny when people have to go through that. Exactly. This is unacceptable. I'm ready for it. I don't know if a lot of other people are. But just as it was unacceptable for Kevin McCarthy to provide 41,000 hours of sensitive security footage to a biased talking head in an effort to rewrite what happened on January 6th.
Nothing to
this
do
is
with
a new
this.
Republican playbook, apparently.
Mr.
Risk
Chairman.
American safety and
Cut
security
her off.
for political
Cut her
points.
off.
The gentlelady's word should be struck. We do not accuse witnesses of threatening others. That is out of line and
I'm not
outside the rules of
striking
this
down
committee.
that, and I can have an
You don't get to
opinion
determine
about
what's
what
struck down.
witnesses.
Well, you do get an opening statement, and it's
And
about,
so let
it's
me
about
finish.
over.
We know this is because at the first hearing, the chairman claimed that big government and big tech colluded to shape and mold the narrative and suppress information and censor Americans. This is a false narrative. We're engaging in false narratives here, and we are going to tell the truth.
Listen, look,
Young lady,
the United States government is a false narrative. Okay? You're here on false pretenses. So if you want to go back, let's talk about the Native Americans you slaughtered and the African Americans that you enslaved to build this country. So based on your past, we can't trust anything that you say. So that's your litmus test for Matt Taibbi and Elon Musk, is to go back through their history and say, oh, you did this and you did that, blah, 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 blah. Okay, well then, everything that you say is bullshit too, because of what you're coming from.
Builds back. I would just point out the consent decree was in our report. We offered your staff also the opportunity to review the FTC letters. You have not come over to review those letters. Third, the idea that I believe both of these individuals who are getting ready to testify, I believe they're both Democrats. The idea that 2 journalists who
Did you
happen to
not
be
give that
Democrats-
offer at
No,
8 o'clock
I'm
last
talking
night?
Now. Your time was ended.
Neither of us are in time.
I don't think they're here to help us politically. I think they're here to tell us the truth. And oh, by the way, the first FTC letter to Twitter after the first set of Twitter files, the very first question was, who are the journalists you're talking to? And you guys don't care. You don't care.
You
don't
care
want
about the
you don't want the
2011
American people to see.
consent
You don't
decree?
want the American people to see what happened, the full video, transparency. You don't want that, and you don't want 2 journalists who have been named personally by the Biden administration, FTC, in a letter.
The Biden
And you're
administration
saying
is
they're
not
here
the
to help us.
FTC.
They're here to tell their story. And frankly, I think they're brave individuals for being willing to come after they've been named in a letter from the Biden FTC.
Is this your question time now?
No, I'm responding to your ridiculous statements you made in your opening statement.
Okay, well, let's get on with it.
Boom!
Oh, now we want to get on. So you can say all the things you want.
I
point
did
out
in
the
my
facts.
opening statement,
I
as
point
well
out
as
all
you
the
had an
facts.
opening statement. You said what you needed to say.
Now, I'm sorry. I thought this guy was Kevin McCarthy. My bad. It's Jordan, and that's I don't like Kevin McCarthy, and I don't like this guy. Jim, I can think his name is Jim Jordan, but I've been saying McCarthy, and this guy's name is Jim Jordan, I believe. But I just want to say he's doing a good job, and I agreed with everything that he just said. Everything that woman just said was out of line, and I think he did a very good job as the person in charge of that hearing in calling her out on her fucking bullshit just then. I hope you guys in the chat agree with me on this. I mean, I know he's a Republican. I don't like him based on that. But, the way this woman over here is speaking, she's not going to get my support. I'd love to hear from you guys in the chat.
Say in your opening statement, and I, as the ranking member, have
Without
used my
objection,
time.
all other opening statements will be included in the record. We will introduce today's witness, Matt Taibbi, the journalist and author. He's one of the authors of the Twitter files, previously
Please
worked for
share
Rolling
this on
Stone, that
social
right-wing
media.
publication,
Get some
Rolling
people
Stone,
here who
where
will
so many
talk,
Republicans
please.
work at. He's also written several books about American politics and culture. And of course, as I pointed out, as the Wall Street Journal pointed out yesterday on the front page, was named by the FTC. Michael Schellenberger is also a journalist, author, and one of the authors of the Twitter files. He's also co-founded several nonprofits, including Breakthrough Institute, Environmental Progress, and the California Peace Coalition, another right-wing Republican organization, I'm sure. His work often focuses on crime and drug policy, homelessness, and the climate. We welcome our witnesses and thank them for appearing today. We will begin by swearing you in. Would you please stand and raise your right hand?
What he just laid out is the fact that both of those guys come from liberal backgrounds, for sure. They're not right-leaning at all.
Do you swear or affirm under penalty
Neither of them
of
are.
perjury that the testimony you're about to give is true and correct to the best of your knowledge, information, and belief, so help you God? Let the record show both witnesses have
Jim
answered
Jordan's
in the affirmative.
Republican.
Thank you.
Those
Be
two
seated,
journalists
please.
are Democrats.
We will now start with Mr.
Well,
Taibbi.
Taibbi's
You guys, I think,
probably an
understand
independent.
Do you want to go with Mr. Schellenberger? We can go with Mr. Schellenberger.
But
Start with Mr.
they support
Schellenberger.
the
You
left.
understand how it works. You get 5 minutes. Make sure you hit the microphone so we
And
can
you
all
can
hear.
see how this is so hard for them,
When it gets to
you know?
yellow, it means just like
Because
you
they're-
expect
they're
time to start lining up,
realizing
and when it
how
gets to the right
bad
time to stop it. We'll be a
their
little bit
side
lenient on
is,
time.
too.
Mr. Schellenberger, you're recognized for your opening statement.
Stephen
Chairman
Running.
Jordan, Ranking Member Plaskett, members of the committee, thank you very much
DWS
for
is
inviting my
corrupt to
testimony.
begin with
In his 1961 farewell
2016
address,
election.
President Dwight Eisenhower warned of, quote, the acquisition of unwarranted influence by the military-industrial complex. Eisenhower feared that the size and power of the complex or cluster of government contractors in the Defense Department would, quote, endanger our liberties or democratic processes. How did he mean that? Through, quote, domination of the nation's scholars by federal employment, project allocations, and the power of money. He feared public policy would become the captive of a scientific, technological elite. Eisenhower's fears were well-founded. Today, American taxpayers are unwittingly financing the growth and power of a censorship industrial complex run by America's scientific and technological elite, which endangers our liberties and democracy. I'm grateful for this opportunity to offer this testimony and sound the alarm over the shocking and disturbing emergence of state-sponsored censorship in the United States of America. The Twitter files, state attorneys general lawsuits, and investigative reporters have revealed a large and growing network of government agencies, academic institutions, and non-governmental organizations that are actively censoring American citizens, often without their knowledge, on a range of issues. I do not know how much of the censorship is coordinated beyond what we have been able to document, and I will not speculate. I recognize that the law allows Facebook, Twitter, and other private companies to moderate content on their platforms, and I support the right of governments to communicate with the public, including to dispute inaccurate information. But government officials have been caught repeatedly pushing social media platforms to censor disfavored users and content. Often these acts of censorship threaten the legal protection social media companies need to exist, Section 230. If government officials are directing or facilitating such censorship, knows one law professor, it raises serious First Amendment questions. It is axiomatic that the government cannot do indirectly what it is prohibited from doing directly. Moreover, we know that the U.S. government has funded organizations that pressure advertisers to boycott news media organizations and social media platforms that refuse to censor and or spread disinformation, including alleged conspiracy theories. The Stanford Internet Observatory, the University of Washington, the Atlantic Council's Digital Forensic Research Lab, and Graphica have all inadequately disclosed ties to the Department of Defense, the CIA, and other intelligence agencies. They work with multiple U.S. government agencies to institutionalize censorship research and advocacy within dozens of other universities and think tanks. It is important to understand how these groups function. They are not publicly engaging with their opponents in an open exchange of ideas. They aren't asking for a national debate over the limits of the First Amendment. Rather, they are creating blacklists of disfavored people and then pressuring, cajoling, and demanding that social media platforms censor, de-amplify, and even ban the people on those lists.
So, you know, what he's saying is fucking horrible, okay? He's saying they've got the evidence to back up everything he's saying. The Democrats sitting on this committee don't want to hear it because mostly they're the ones that are getting called out for the manipulation. So now you understand why that guy from the Humanist Report thinks that these two reporters are bullshit because it goes against his narrative.
By the fear that the internet and social media platforms empower populist, alternative, and fringe personalities and views which they regard as
play a narrative, man.
Federal government officials, agencies, and contractors have gone from fighting ISIS recruiters and Russian bots to censoring and deplatforming ordinary Americans and disfavored public figures.
Like me call
Importantly,
you
the bar
out,
for
bro.
bringing in military-grade government monitoring and speech countering techniques has moved from, quote, countering terrorism to, quote, countering
like me
extremism
offer you
to countering simple
$1,000
misinformation, otherwise known as being
to just
wrong
read
on the
through
internet.
your
The government no
all
longer
the
is a predicate of
tweets
calling you a terrorist or an
that people
extremist
sent
deploy
to
government
you
resources to counter
so
your
you
political
can
activity.
see how
The only
wrong
predicate of
you
deeds is simply the
were.
assertion that the opinion you expressed on social media is wrong. These efforts extend to influencing and even directing conventional news media organizations. Since 1971, when the Washington Post and New York Times elected to publish classified Pentagon papers about the war in Vietnam, journalists have understood that we have a professional obligation to report on leaked documents whose contents are in the public interest. And yet in 2020, the Aspen Institute and Stanford Cyber Policy Center urged journalists to, quote, break the Pentagon Papers principle and not cover leaked information to prevent the spread of disinformation. Government-funded censors frequently invoke the prevention of real-world harm to justify their demands for censorship, but the censors define harm far more expansively than the Supreme Court does. Increasingly, the censors say their goal is to restrict information that delegitimizes governmental, industrial, and news media organizations. That mandate is so sweeping that it could easily censor criticism from any part of the status quo, from elected officials to institutions to laws. Congress should immediately cut off funding to the censors and investigate their activities. It should mandate instant reporting of all conversations between social media executives, government employees, and government contractors concerning content moderation. And finally, Congress should limit the broad permission given to social media platforms to censor, deplatform, and spread public propaganda. Thank you very much.
I thank the gentleman for his opening statement. Mr. Tybee, you're now recognized for 5 minutes. Hit that, Mr. Tybee, hit that.
I'm going to slow Matt
Chairman
down.
Jordan, Ranking Member Plaskett,
He's
members of the
great.
Select Committee, thank you for having me today. My name is Matt Taibbi. I've been a reporter for 30 years and a staunch advocate of the First Amendment. Much of that time was spent at Rolling Stone magazine. Ranking Member Plaskett, I'm not a so-called journalist. I've won the National Magazine Award, the I.F. Stone Award for Independent Journalism, and I've written 10 books, including 4 New York Times bestsellers. I'm now the editor of the online magazine Racket on the independent platforms.
Now you can hear, I believe it's Jim Jordan chuckling in the background, because these Democrats have been trying to character assassinate Taibbi. And he's reading through his credentials and he's laughing at how qualified this guy is. And at what fools these Democrats are sounding like when they're trying to attack them over the information that they were reporting on.
Substack.
That's why there's
I'm
laughter.
here today because of a series of events that began late last year when I received a note from a source online. It read, "Are you interested in doing a deep dive into what censorship and manipulation was going on at Twitter?" A week later, the first of what became known as the Twitter Files reports came out. To say these attracted intense public interest would be an understatement. My computer looked like a Vegas slot machine, as just the first tweet about the blockage of the Hunter Biden laptop story registered 143 million impressions and 30 million engagements. But it wasn't until a week after the first report, after Michael Schellenberger, Barry Weiss, and other researchers joined the search of the files, that we started to grasp the significance of this story. The original promise of the internet was that it might democratize the exchange of information globally.
This is great. Listen to what he says.
A free internet would overwhelm all attempts to control information flow, its very existence a threat to anti-democratic forms of government everywhere. What we found in the files was a sweeping effort to reverse that promise and use machine learning and other tools to turn the internet into an instrument of censorship and social control. Unfortunately, our own government appears to be playing a lead role. We saw the first hints in communications between Twitter executives before the 2020 election, when we read things like flag by DHS or please see attached report from the FBI for potential misinformation.
That guy's a piece
this
of
would
shit.
be attached to an Excel
That guy's a
spreadsheet
piece
with a
of shit
long
right
list of
there.
names whose accounts were often suspended shortly after. Again, Ranking Member Plaskett, I would note that the evidence of Twitter-government relationship includes lists of tens of thousands of names on both the left and right. The people affected include Trump supporters, but also left-leaning sites like Consortium and Truth Out, the leftist South American channel Telesur, the Yellow Vest movement. That, in fact, is a key point of the Twitter files, that it's neither a left nor right issue.
See that?
Following the trail of communications between Twitter and the federal government across tens of thousands of emails led to a series of revelations. Mr. Chairman, we summarized and submitted them to the committee in the form of a new Twitter files thread, which was also released to the public this morning. We learned Twitter, Facebook, Google, and other companies developed a formal system for taking in moderation requests from every corner of government, from the FBI, the DHS, the HHS, DOD, the Global Engagement Center at State, even the CIA. For every government agency scanning Twitter, there were perhaps 20 quasi-private entities doing the same thing, including Stanford's Election Integrity Partnership, NewsGuard, the Global Disinformation Index, and many others, many taxpayer-funded. A focus of this fast-growing network, as Mike noted, is making lists of people whose opinions, beliefs, associations, or sympathies are deemed misinformation, disinformation, or malinformation. That last term is just a euphemism for true but inconvenient. Undeniably, the making of such lists is a form of digital McCarthyism. Ordinary Americans are not just being reported to Twitter for de-amplification or deplatforming, but the firms like PayPal, digital advertisers like Xandr, and crowdfunding sites like GoFundMe. These companies can and do refuse service to law-abiding people and businesses whose only crime is falling afoul of a distant, faceless, unaccountable, algorithmic judge.
Right?
As
Like
someone
me?
who grew up a traditional ACLU liberal, this mechanism for punishment and deprivation without due process is horrifying. Another troubling aspect is the role of the press, which should be the people's last line of defense in such cases. But instead of investigating these groups, journalists partnered with them. If Twitter declined to remove an account right away, government agencies and NGOs would call reporters for the New York Times, Washington Post, and other outlets, who in turn would call Twitter, demanding to know why action had not yet been taken. Effectively, news media became an arm of a state-sponsored thought policing system. I'm running out of time, so I'll just sum up and say, it's just not possible to instantly arrive at truth. It is, however, possible, becoming technologically possible to instantly define and enforce a political consensus online, which I believe is what we're looking at. This is a grave threat to people of all political persuasions. The First Amendment and an American population accustomed to the right to speak is the best defense left against the censorship industrial complex. If the latter can knock over our first and most important constitutional guarantee, these groups will have no serious opponent left anywhere. If there's anything the Twitter files show, it's that we're in danger of losing this most precious right, without which all democratic rights are impossible. Thank you for the opportunity to appear, and I'd be happy to answer any questions from the committee.
Thank you, Mr. Taibbi. We appreciate both of your opening statements. The chair now recognizes the gentleman from Louisiana, Mr. Johnson, for 5 minutes of question.
Gentlemen, thank you both for being here. It is not surprising that the minority is already attacking you in its opening statement. We apologize to both of you. You shouldn't be treated that way. Some of the defenders of big tech and the Biden administration, as we know, have worked very hard to cast doubts on the legitimacy of your reporting, and some have gone so far to state it's irrelevant if Twitter was suppressing speech in coordination with the federal government. But this morning, we saw a stunning display of their attack of your character. We shouldn't be surprised. This is what the defenders of big government corruption do. This is the playbook. They destroy the messenger. We just saw it here on live television, and everybody can see it for themselves, and the whistleblowers, of course, as well. Look, this is what we know. What you've documented carefully in the Twitter files are a couple of key facts. People hear a lot of things today, but this is what they need to know. The federal government, from Democrat members of Congress to intelligence agencies, including the FBI, used Twitter and other social media companies to censor Americans' speech. If the alarm bells are not going off, then you're not paying attention. Over the past 3 years, documents show, they prove what you guys have uncovered here, is there's communication between Twitter and the FBI. It was constant, it was pervasive. Twitter was basically an FBI subsidiary before Elon Musk took it over. The Twitter files revealed that by 2020, Twitter was engaged in open information sharing with the intelligence community, and now we know there were many intelligence agencies apparently involved in this. The FBI pressured Twitter to act on election-related tweets leading up to the 2022 election. Of course, they did it in 2020 as well, and Twitter dutifully censored content as a result. Twitter executives restricted accounts, they censored speech that conflicted with the left's narrative. Twitter has used its internal tools to control and manipulate speech considered misinformation, and who was determining that? It was the government bureaucrats. Documents show that Twitter used visibility filtering to restrict certain accounts and posts and remove people from the platform altogether. The Twitter files should be a matter of bipartisan concern for every member of Congress and every American citizen, because it is a bedrock principle of our constitutional system that the government does not get to decide what speech is acceptable or true. Under the First Amendment, Americans have a right to speak freely, regardless of whether their speech upsets the preferred narrative. In fact, that's when it needs the most vigorous protection. Everybody on the left used to believe in that, or at least they purported to. Government and media fact-checkers frequently get things wrong. The American people can't and shouldn't rely on so-called experts to be the arbiters of truth, disinformation boards, and the like. It doesn't matter what political party you're in. Government should not suppress important debates in public discourse. Gentlemen, let me start with Mr. Taibbi. You have a long, award-winning journalist career. You've just highlighted here decades of experience reporting on some of the most complex and important issues of our time. Where do you rate your reporting on the Twitter files among your whole body of work throughout your career? How serious is this?
Well, first of all, Mr. Congressman, thank you for the question. I would say, I spent 10 years covering the aftermath of the 2008 financial crisis. That was obviously a very serious issue, but this Twitter file story and what we're looking at now and what we're investigating now, I don't think there's any comparison. This is by far the most serious thing that I've ever looked at, and it's certainly the most grave story that I've ever worked on personally.
I want to ask you both the same question, and that is, first of all, has anyone from the federal government contacted you during the course of this investigation or since you reported on the Twitter files? And number two, who do you think are the most egregious federal government agencies involved in this censorship exercise? Let's start with Mr. Schellenberg.
Thank you, Congressman. I have not been contacted. Thank you, Congressman. I have not been contacted by anybody in the Biden administration related to this topic. And I would like to echo what Matt just said. I've never worked on an issue where so frequently while doing it, I just had chills go up my spine because of what I was seeing happening. I never thought in my own country that freedom of speech would be threatened in this way. And it's just frightening when you get into it. The most recent, our most recent discoveries, I think you understand the process, is that we first raised a bunch of concerns around the way Twitter pre-Elon Musk was censoring people and creating blacklists. Very quickly, we discovered that we had FBI agents basically and other government officials demanding that Twitter take certain actions. We now know that the Department of Homeland Services, which has had Security, sorry, Department of Homeland Security, had tried to create a disinformation board. That went away after public backlash, but we now realize that they have this other enterprise, and they've been building out basically mechanisms to proliferate a censorship industrial complex around the country to censor on a whole range of issues. And so you've seen this censorship industry go from, well, we're just fighting ISIS, to, well, we're just fighting Russian disinformation bots, to, well, now we need to fight domestic misinformation, which is just saying we need to fight against people who are saying things we disagree with online. That's all that means. And I mean, it's not a slippery slope. It's an immediate leap into a terrifying mechanism that we only see in totalitarian societies of attempting to gain control over what the social media platforms are allowing. And so, yeah, for me, it starts at DHS, but we basically see almost every government agency involved in this.
It's frightening amount of time. I yield back.
Gentleman from Massachusetts, Mr. Lynch is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do need to correct the record. So there's been the suggestion here that the FBI and other government agencies pressured employees at Twitter to validate these theories of foreign influence. When we had Mr. Roth, who was Yoel Roth, who was the former global head of trust and safety at Twitter, so we asked Twitter if there was pressure applied, and Mr. Roth said, no, I would not agree with that. The FBI, this is his quote, the FBI was quite careful and quite consistent to request review of the accounts, but not to cross the line into advocating for Twitter to take any particular action. So that's what Twitter said about the actions of the FBI vis-a-vis Twitter. Mr. Taibbi, in 2019, Special Counsel Robert Mueller unequivocally found that the Internet Research Agency, owned by Yevgeny Prigozhin, the same oligarch who runs the Wagner Group, carried out an extensive social media disinformation campaign to help then-candidate Donald Trump and to hurt Hillary Clinton. He also found that the Russian intelligence interfered with the 2016 election via a hack and release campaign, damaging to the Clinton campaign. These particular findings came on the heels of the unanimous assessment on the part of the United States 18 intelligence agencies that Russian President Putin, quote, ordered an influence campaign in 2016 aimed at the presidential election, close quote. They also followed the release of a bipartisan Senate Intelligence Committee report finding that Russia and Vladimir Putin engaged in, I quote, aggressive, multifaceted effort to influence the U.S. presidential election. So, Mr. Taibbi, do you believe that the Russians and their oligarch-controlled Internet Research Agency interfered in the 2016 election via this social media disinformation campaign? Do you believe that?
Mr. Congressman, my disagreement with the issue is...
I think this is basically a yes or no question. Either you think so or you don't, and I don't have a lot of time, so...
Okay, well then I'm going to answer not in the sense that you're putting it.
Okay.
I think all countries engage in offensive information operations. The question is scale.
You believe that
the
Russia
Twitter files
engaged in hacking? Reclaiming my time. That's how it works now. I'll ask the questions and you try to provide an answer if you can.
Trying to shame him.
The gentleman is out of order and should not be interrupting a member asking a question on our side, Mr. Chairman.
Reclaiming my time from everyone. Do you believe that Russia engaged in a hack and release campaign damaging to the Clinton campaign back in 2016? Again,
I don't know, and I would say it's irrelevant.
Let me ask Mr. Schellenberg. These are pretty easy questions. It's just whether you believe it or not. Mr. Schellenberg, same question. Do you believe that the Russian oligarch-controlled Internet Research Agency interfered in the 2016 election?
I think that they tried to.
Okay.
Josh G.
Mr. Schellenberg, do you believe that the Russians engaged in a hack and release campaign with respect to the damaging information they released regarding the campaign?
To the best of my awareness, that is what happened.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you.
These guys are just reporters, man. They're treating them like Russian assets.
Look, let me introduce a couple of documents just to reinforce.
And they know it, and that's why they're grinning and they're laughing, because they're like, you guys are little cuck bitches.
Claiming my time.
Sure. We're not Russian assets, and you guys are little cucks.
So, Mr. Chairman, I'll ask unanimous consent to enter the indictment in the United States versus the Internet Research Agency, U.S. District Court of the District of Columbia, number 1-18-32, and also ask to enter the record the executive summary to Volume 1 of the Mueller report, which states, in March 2016, the GRU began hacking, this is the Russian agency, began hacking the email accounts of the Clinton campaign, volunteers and employees, including campaign chairman John Podesta. The GRU later released additional materials through the organization WikiLeaks. The presidential campaign of Donald Trump showed interest in WikiLeaks releases of the documents and welcomed their potential damage to candidate Clinton. So I've introduced these documents.
Without objection.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've introduced these documents, but it's clear to me that Russia's use of social media to interfere in the 2016 election created abundant reason
Okay, I think
for social media platforms to be concerned.
Gentleman's time has expired. Without objection, these documents are entered into the record. We now recognize the gentleman from California, Mr. Issa, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to continue along, in a sense, the line we've been on just now. Mr. Taibbi and Mr. Schellenberger, I'll ask both of you. Is it fair to say Russia is a bad actor who is trying to do everything they can to undermine confidence in the United States government and in our form of democracy?
I think that's a fair statement.
Yes.
Okay. Are you familiar with the organization in Europe, the Global Engagement Center?
Yes.
Well, it's an American.
State Department, I'm sorry. But are you familiar with the Global Engagement Center's use of European and other sources to in fact, determine where Twitter files should or shouldn't be, if you will, taking down thousands of names and Twitter files?
Understand. This guy talks for 5 minutes, and it's just a complete waste of time, but check it out anyway. Right. I'll speed it way up.
I'm not sure that the Global Engagement Center is taking down Twitter files. I actually wasn't aware of that. I'm sorry.
Well, Twitter and the FBI have used this organization and their funding. Well, let me go on to another stay on the path I was on. You commented that the scale mattered. Okay, would you elaborate on scale mattering in the attempt to undermine free speech?
Absolutely. So a great example of this is a report that the Global Engagement Center sent to Twitter and to members of the media and other platforms about what they call the pillars of Russian disinformation. Now, part of this report is what I think you would call traditional, hardcore intelligence gathering, where they made a reasoned, evidence-based case that certain sites were linked to Russian influence or linked to the Russian government. In addition to that, however, they also said that sites that, quote, generate their own momentum and have opinions that are in line with those accounts are part of a propaganda ecosystem. Now, this is just another word for guilt by association. And this is the problem with the whole idea of trying to identify which accounts are actually the Internet Research Agency and which ones are just people who follow those accounts or retweeted them. Twitter initially did not find more than a handful of IRA accounts. It wasn't until they got into an argument with the Senate Select Intelligence Committee that they came back with a different answer.
Okay, so scale matters, but let me go through a couple of quick questions that I think are part of the reason that we have this Select Committee. This country has political parties and people from one might call the extreme left and extreme right. And even Congress has people that might be considered outside the main street of Republican and Democratic thinking. Those people speak regularly, and they have since our founding. Is that correct?
Yes.
And the ACLU and journalists almost always support their right to say what they believe, even if you disagree.
Absolutely.
And our Constitution says we will make no law to restrain exactly that kind of free speech.
Yes.
And that includes people who promote the idea that we should redistribute all wealth in a communist-type way. As a matter of fact, we still have a communist party in the United States. Isn't that correct?
It is.
Okay, so the limit of free speech historically has been incitement to violence or anarchy, the actual overthrow of a government. Anything other than that is historically covered by the First Amendment.
Yes.
So when we look at the very nature of the State Department funding to affect domestic U.S. speech, was that speech outside the legal bounds? Did it call for insurrection or other criminal activities that would destroy our government?
No.
No, I mean, we did not. I mean, we're not saying that didn't happen, but we're describing people having political arguments online.
Right, so let me just, because my time's limited like everyone's. So it's suffice to say that every bit of the speech, or virtually every bit of the speech, whether foreign or domestic, online, fell within the normal protections of the First Amendment, and the very act of federal dollars being used to stifle that speech is, in fact, historically, what we would consider an indictment against the First Amendment protections.
Correct.
That is why we have this subcommittee. That is why we're here today. Thank you.
I think the gentleman,
Okay, what was that all about?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Taibbi, I want to ask about journalistic ethics and information sources. The Society of Professional Journalists Code of Ethics asserts that journalists should avoid political activities that can compromise integrity or credibility. Being a Republican witness today certainly casts a cloud over your objectivity. But a deeper concern that I have relates to the ethics of how journalists receive and present certain information. Journalists should avoid accepting spoon-fed, cherry-picked information if it's likely to be slanted, incomplete, or designed to reach a foregone, easily disputed, or invalid conclusion. Would you agree with that?
I think it depends.
Really? You wouldn't agree that a journalist should avoid spoon-fed, cherry-picked information if it's likely to be slanted, incomplete, or designed to reach a foregone, easily disputed, or invalid conclusion?
Congresswoman, I've done probably a dozen stories involving whistleblowers. Every reported story that I've ever done across 3 decades involves sources who have motives. Every time you do a story, you're making a balancing test between the public
reclaiming
interest.
my time. Thank you very much.
Reclaiming
I asked you
her
this
time.
because before you became Elon Musk's hand-picked journalist, and pardon the oxymoron, you stated this on Joe Rogan's podcast about being spoon-fed information, and I quote, I think that's true of any kind of journalism, and you'll see it behind me here. I think that's true of any kind of journalism. Once you start getting handed things, then you've lost. They have you at that point, and you got to get out of that habit. You just can't cross that line.
Alice.
Do you still believe what you told Mr. Rogan? Yes or no? Yes or no?
Yes.
Good. Now, you crossed that line with the Twitter files.
No.
We've already seen this at the beginning of the show. That's why I'm talking over
Elon Musk spoon-fed you his cherry-picked information, which you must have suspected promotes a slanted viewpoint, or at the very least generates another right-wing conspiracy theory. You violated your own standard, and you appear to have benefited from it. Before the release of the emails in August of last year, you had 661,000 Twitter followers. After the Twitter files, your followers doubled, and now it's 3 times what it was last August. I imagine your Substack readership, which is a subscription, increased significantly because of the work that you did for Elon Musk. Now, I'm not asking you to put a dollar figure on it, but it's quite obvious that you profited from the Twitter files. You hit the jackpot on that Vegas slot machine to which you referred. That's true, isn't it?
I've also reinvested.
You've made some. No. Is it true that you have profited since you were the recipient of the Twitter files? You've made money.
Straw
yes
man.
or no?
I think it's probably a wash, honestly.
No, you have made money that you did not have before.
Straw man.
But I've also spent money.
Reclaiming my time.
Hey,
attention is a powerful drug.
Debbie Wasserman Schultz, do you make money off of your career too? Do you benefit whenever your face is on TV? Do you get more donations and out of promotions? You're an idiot. You make no sense. What you basically did was you just had him state facts that everybody knows and everybody's aware of that aren't damaging at all, and you just wasted everybody's time, and you made no point at all. You're a fucking pro-straw manning piece of shit, and you're worthless, and you need to sit the fuck down.
Drug, eyeballs, money, prominence,
And
attention,
you
all
know
of it
what?
points to problems with accuracy and credibility.
You're really rough to look at, too. You know, some women just don't age gracefully. You're a perfect example of that.
And the larger point, which is social media companies are not biased against
She's so
conservatives.
ugly, I
If
need a
anything,
bomb
they
her.
ignored their own policies by allowing Trump and other MAGA extremists to post incessant lies, endangering public safety and even our democracy. Hypocrisy is a hangover of an addiction to attention. Now, I want to point out another alleged finding from the Twitter files. Mr. Schellenberger, you
Jimbo,
referenced several
cheers,
times
your
the
mic's
$3.4 million that
Josh.
the FBI paid
Cheers,
to Twitter in
Steve.
2020.
Cheers,
It was referenced in
everybody
General Counsel
else.
Jim Baker's email.
What's up,
I first want to confirm that nowhere in the email does Baker
Rumble?
say that the money was paid to censor
rumbling
information,
along
take down
the
posts,
Rumble.
suspend accounts, or do
What's
anything
up, the
related to
Rumblers?
content moderation. Is that correct?
What's up, the
Thank you.
Rumblers?
But honest reporting would have
What,
explained that the
rumbling?
3.4 million was paid to
Rumbling
release
all day.
information, not censor it. One of my colleagues on this panel repeated your distortions and told Americans this reimbursement was used to, quote, censor certain stories. That's a flat-out lie. Mr. Schellenberger, are you aware of Section 2706 under the Stored Communications Act? It says when social media companies comply with subpoenas, warrants, or court orders, it costs them money, so they get reimbursed. The FBI makes these requests and reimbursements to discover evidence that run relevant to a criminal investigation. Let me repeat that. The FBI makes these requests to help catch the bad guys. That helps keep child predators off social media sites. It helps keep violent criminals off our streets. I support the FBI and our law enforcement agencies. It would be nice if our Republican colleagues did the same and not fabricate explanations for payments that are defined for clear purposes in federal law. My time is just about wrapped up.
May I
But the
respond?
truth is that social media companies are unregulated monoliths. They pose danger to individuals. They allow posts that bring harm, and that's the bottom line. The other side will not tell you. I yield back the balance of my time.
Generally had no time to yield back, but I will let the gentleman, Mr. Schellenberger, respond. And I would also point out that I did not say what the
Mr.
FBI
Chairman, I
paid
did
Twitter
not-
for. All I said was they paid Twitter $3.4 million.
Mr. Chairman, point of order. I didn't ask Mr. Schellenberger a question.
Yeah, but
My
the witness
understanding-
wants to respond, and the witness has been invited our guest, and frankly, they've been attacked by the federal
please do
government.
that.
I'm going to let Mr. Schellenberger answer that before recognizing Mr. Bishop.
So are you going to do that as we move down the line of questioners?
The gentleman has not been recognized. You had your 5 minutes, and frankly, I think that's at the discretion of the chair. Mr. Schellenberger, you can respond briefly.
I'll be brief, which is that my understanding from those files is that Twitter had decided not to take that money until recently. So if you read that email, what Stasha, I believe, the person that sent it, is saying is that they started taking money after previously not taking it. And I believe that the reason that they had not taken it earlier was because they did not want that financial conflict clouding their relationship.
Chairman, the money is payment under
He's out
federal
of order.
law so that they can
The gentleman
recoup
from North
costs
Carolina, Mr. Bishop, is
for
recognized for
the
5
material
minutes.
that they've been asked.
I thank the
That's
gentleman.
bottom
And
line.
Mr. Taibbi, would you care to, I'm down here on this end, sir.
I love the way he cut her off.
You weren't given really an
Like,
opportunity to
shut
answer.
up,
And if
it
you be
ain't
brief,
your
I've got a bunch
time,
of stuff I want to ask you as well.
bitch.
Sure, just quickly,
Next.
that moment on the Joe Rogan show, I was actually recounting a section from Seymour Hersh's book Reporter, where he described a scene where the CIA gave him the story,
Don't
and he
you
was very
guys love
uncomfortable.
that?
He said that I, who had always gotten the
you know,
secrets, was being
freaking
handed the secrets.
fathead didn't want to
Look,
show that
again,
on
I've
his
done
little
lots of
shit
whistleblower
cast.
stories. There's always a balancing test that you make when you're given material,
Talk about
and you're
getting
always balancing
owned.
newsworthiness versus the motives of your sources. In this case, the newsworthiness.
Talk about getting owned. Debbie Wasserman Schultz got owned by Jim Jordan way worse than Matt Taibbi got owned by Debbie Wasserman Schultz. But little fathead doesn't want to talk about that, does he?
Clearly outweighed any other considerations.
Little
and I
big
think everybody
man.
else who worked on the
Little
project
big
agrees.
head.
Doesn't seem like any
Oh,
reporter who breaks a
Little
blockbuster
Big
story
Head,
is going
that's
to get
his
attention,
name
and
now.
there may
Big
be
Pump,
even
Little Big
financial
Head.
consequences that follow. It seems like as surely as
That's
Mike
your
follows
new
the day, that's
name,
the
you little
case,
punk
right?
bitch. Little
That is
Big
true, although I
Head.
would like to clear up, some things that have been misrepresented. Not one of us has actually been paid to do any of this work. We've all, traveled on our own. We've hired our personnel on our own, and I've just hired a pretty large team to investigate this issue out of my own pocket.
The fact that the attempt comes from the dais across the aisle to smear you, frankly, I think liberals, if I understand that, in your background, you're both good liberals, and you come in and the Democrats' hostility to what you've undertaken is astonishing to behold, but it's part of the picture we're seeing. In Twitter files number 15, Mr. Taibbi, you exposed Hamilton 68.
You know, what he just said, I totally agree with it. It's so funny that I'm agreeing with all these Republicans in this entire hearing. All the Republicans are making sense, and most of the Democrats are idiots. Isn't it psychotic?
A website associated with the German Marshall
Crazy.
Fund that reported in a dashboard to identify Russian bot networks and became ubiquitously cited by media to identify media stories or narratives that supposedly flowed from Russia. From Russia! You showed that the front man for Hamilton 68 was Clint Watts, a former FBI agent. At Twitter, the trust and safety executives were ridiculing Hamilton 68 for the ludicrous identifications that it was making, which they could reverse engineer and
It's
figure out
420
who those
Duke
accounts
Finland,
were.
Laurie Garney Cannon.
And then in Twitter
Cheers,
files number
Jimmy.
17,
Cheers, Josh.
after
Cheers,
disclosing
Steve.
Mr.
Everybody
Watts'
in the
identity,
chats,
you
everyone
disclosed
on
that
the
J.M.
Rumble
Berger is the
Cheers to
creator
all
of
you guys.
Hamilton
Thanks for
68.
joining us
And guess
today.
what? He was a federal contractor, right?
He was, yes. He denies that he worked on it for the Global Engagement Center, but he was an employee of theirs until about a month before the dashboard's release.
Just a month before, he said, I believe publicly, that the dashboard was the product of 3 years' work. So doesn't it beg sort of the intriguing question whether the creation of this fraudulent Hamilton 68 dashboard was effectively underwritten by government funding?
Yes, I think that's a good question. Certainly the German Marshall Fund, which is the NGO that is at the top of the chain in this organization. It's the German Marshall Fund, then the Alliance for Securing Democracy, and then Hamilton 68. They're a federal contractor. They received over $1 million from the Department of Defense. The board of the Alliance for Securing Democracy has a former acting head of the CIA, a former deputy head of the NSA, a former chief of the DHS on it. So
I want to make, and the bigger point is hard because the examples sometimes start making it. I want to introduce you to, or introduce country to somebody else. I think you've mentioned it in one of your writings, Richard Stengel. You know who that is?
Yes, he's the former, the first head of the Global Engagement Center.
I want the American people to hear from him for 30 seconds.
Basically, every country creates their own narrative story. And you know, my old job at the State Department was what people used to joke as the chief propagandist job. We haven't talked about propaganda. Propaganda, I'm not against propaganda. Every country does it, and they have to do it to their own population.
Every country does it. Every country does propaganda, and they have to do it to their own people.
Right.
Is what Mr. Stengel said. If I understand correctly, he was the head of the Global Engagement Center at its creation, right?
He was, and
At
in
least
his
he
book,
can admit his own
Information
country
Wars,
does
there are a number of
propaganda,
passages
and
where he
Debbie
talks about
Wasserman
creating
Schultz
a
can't.
whole of government solution to the information
You know?
problem. He hastened to say that he didn't want to create a quote information ministry.
woman on
but
that-
what he was
on the
describing
head of that
roughly
committee,
approximates that.
she
In the
can't
half minute I've
admit
got
it
left,
either.
he also was associated with Hamilton 68, right?
The Global Engagement Center certainly had ties to Hamilton 68.
I think it's closer than that. Well, that'll come out.
Okay. Well, I'd be anxious to hear that.
I hope I'll get yielded in a minute or two from somebody else down the way. There's all sorts of stuff to disclose.
No
This
one else
committee
yields 'em.
has to uncover not that single instance, but this
I was
system
surprised
that you have
that no one
described.
yielded
This is
'em
the hope
anytime.
that Americans have to set this right. This committee and that hostility shows what we're up against. It's not 3 pillars to the system. It is 4. And you're seeing the left move to crush you and anybody else who tries to expose this. I yield.
I thank the gentleman for his great 5 minutes, and we now yield to the gentleman from Virginia, Mr. Conley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't know what to say after that last one. We're fellow Americans, and we're elected officials. We're trying to get at the truth, and we're trying to participate in the process at getting at the truth. Mr. Taibbi, you have said that this isn't really a matter of right or left, that there are lots of different ideological colorations involved in the Twitter files. Is that roughly correct?
Yes.
And Mr. Schellenberg, you would agree with that?
Yes.
So when you release information, have you released any information of, for example, right-wing elements or the Trump White House attempting to moderate content at Twitter?
Yes. No, not the Trump White House per se, although I did report initially in the first Twitter files that the Trump White House had made and requests and had been honored.
Mr. Schellenberg?
I did not find that.
You haven't found it. So we had a hearing the other day on Twitter, and we had 4 witnesses, 3 for the majority, 1 for the minority, and all 4 testified under oath. They had never received a request for content moderation or takedown by the Biden White House, but they did from Donald Trump's White House. And specifically, the case brought up was an exchange between Donald Trump, then President of the United States, and Chrissy Teigen, where he had called her something, and she called him something back. I won't repeat it. And this was under oath confirmed. Yeah, that happened. And that the White House shortly thereafter, after Teigen had her email about the president, which was pejorative, that the White House called Twitter to try to take on the content. Are you aware of that, Mr. Taibbi?
Yeah, I certainly heard that in the news. Yes.
But did you see that email exchange?
No, I have not seen an exchange from the Trump White House.
So
I have seen one from Congressman Schiff and one from Senator Angus King.
Yeah, nice try. We're talking about the Trump White House and people under oath confirming it. And my question is, in the Twitter files, did Elon Musk or Twitter provide you with that exchange with Chrissy Teigen?
No, but that's probably because the searches that I was making.
Well, probably because it didn't confirm the bias that this is all about, as the gentleman from Texas would say, the left attempting to control.
Stopping here again and just saying it may not have been within the scope of what he was given. We already talked about this earlier because we already watched this footage earlier because this was the footage that Little Big Head had on his
Control
shitcast.
content. When in fact the evidence is the Trump White House most certainly attempted to control content on Twitter. Mr. Schellenberger, were you aware of that, or is this all news to you?
I already answered that question.
No, I mean specifically the Teigen exchange.
Yeah, the Teigen exchange was news to me.
I'm probably mispronouncing her name. I'm sorry. So let me ask: have you combed the so-called Twitter files to look at other examples that aren't about the Biden White House or the FBI that might in fact involve people from the right ideologically or from the Republican ranks? Just to be fair.
Well, again, Mr. Congressman, I mentioned before, we're focused not on the Biden administration or the Trump administration. In fact, just this morning, we released an exchange where Twitter talked about vetting the accounts of both Mr. Biden and Mr. Trump. And really, we were looking at the intelligence agencies when we were doing this research. And as I mentioned before, their conclusions targeted people on both the left and the right globally, again, including the Yellow Vest movement in France, the pro-Maduro accounts in South America, and leftist news organizations in America like Truth Out and Consortium. Some of those people are my friends, actually. And we found those in intelligence lists that were passed on to Twitter, just as we found lists that included ordinary Trump supporters.
Thank you. Reclaiming my time, I appreciate that, because in some ways what you just said undermines the premise of this select committee, which is that the federal government has been organized to weaponize against conservative voices. And of course, what you've just indicated in your testimony is, well, actually, that's not the evidence you found.
No, I think this committee, my understanding is that they're concerned about the weaponization of the government against free speech, which is certainly what we're fighting.
Thank you. My time has expired, but I appreciate your understanding of our committee. I have a different understanding. I yield back.
Well, you got the wrong understanding.
Okay, he could have reclaimed his time then and chose not to, because Matt spoke over him when he was not asked a question. That guy realized he'd been beat, and that's why he didn't reclaim his time at the end. You only reclaim your time if you have stuff to add, right? He had nothing. Matt Taibbi sat there and just destroyed that dude. Little Big Head watched that and got the exact opposite take that I just gave you. What do you guys in the audience think? Is anybody keeping up? How do you think Matt Taibbi did in that little matchup? Let me hear
Judiciary Committee hearing, I introduced into the record a story of a left-wing journalist who said that talked about the FBI putting a paid informant, a felon, in the Black Lives Matter movement in Denver. I want to focus on the First Amendment, just like protecting the First Amendment, just like these guys.
Point of order, Mr. Chair. Are you going to respond after every?
No, I'm taking my 5 minutes.
This is
it's
your 5 minutes now?
I take my 5 minutes when I want to, and I'm taking my 5 minutes.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, I've asked for an additional few seconds for being interrupted by the ranking member. But the truth is, we want to focus on protecting the First Amendment. Mr. Schellenberger, you're a Republican.
Did you guys catch what just happened? Look, I'm going to play that in real time so you can enjoy it. It's so delectable because I enjoyed it in real time, and it is so delicious what Jim Jordan does to Miss Plaskett. Here, watch this. We'll give Jim his whole speak here. Watch this.
Wrong understanding. Last week in the full Judiciary Committee hearing, I introduced into the record a story of a left-wing journalist who said that talked about the FBI putting a paid informant, a felon, in the Black Lives Matter movement in Denver. I want to focus on the First Amendment, just like protecting the First Amendment, just like these guys
Point
do.
of order, Mr. Chair. Are you going to respond after every?
No, I'm taking my 5 minutes.
This is
I
your.
can take
Oh,
my
you're,
5
oh,
minutes.
it's your 5 minutes now.
I can take my 5 minutes when I want to, and I'm taking my 5 minutes.
Okay,
now.
great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, I would ask for an additional few seconds for being interrupted by the ranking member.
Boom! Right there.
But the truth is, we want to focus on protecting the First Amendment. Mr. Schellenberger, you're a Republican.
No, I'm not.
You got any pro-Trump bumper stickers on your car?
I voted for Biden.
Voted for Biden. You know how many MAGA hats laying around your house, right?
I do not.
Yeah, but you said earlier, both you and Mr. Taibbi said this is the most chilling thing you've ever seen as journalists. Mr. Taibbi, the same thing. You're not a Republican either, right?
No.
You didn't vote for. I mean, this is about protecting the First Amendment. Mr. Taibbi, I want to read from your Twitter file number 9. You say this.
That is some cold, level-headed ruling right there. What he just did was he just showed all those Democrats. He's like, these guys are with you. They're exposing you from your side. Understand that. Stop trying to blame these guys and say that they're Republicans or they're doing something for the right wing or they're bought off or they're unscrupulous or they're not good reporters or they don't have the credentials to do what they both do have the credentials to do what they're doing. In fact, this gives them even more. And you give them no credit and you completely take away from them.
Twitter files, the Bureau issued a statement Wednesday, referring to the FBI. Here's what the FBI said. It is unfortunate that conspiracy theorists and others are feeding the American public misinformation with the sole purpose of attempting to discredit the agency. You then follow up, and this is why I think you're an award-winning author, you then follow up, they must think we're unambitious if our sole aim is to discredit the FBI. After all, a whole range of government agencies discredit themselves in the Twitter files. And then you go on to, in this particular Twitter file, to talk about what Mr. Bishop was just talking about, the GEC at the State Department. You talk about the CIA. You talk about the DOD. You talk about the FBI. You talk about the DHS. You talk about the Foreign Intelligence Task Force, which is a combination of all these. But there was one agency you didn't mention. because you didn't know at the time. One agency, you got almost the whole alphabet, but you didn't mention one agency, the FTC. Because you know about them now.
Yes, we
You know
do.
about them now in an up-close and personal way. You didn't know then, but you do know now. December 2nd, as I said earlier, December 2nd, the first Twitter file comes out, Mr. Taibbi. And I think there are 5 others, including the ones from Mr. Schellenberger. December 13th, the very first letter that the FTC sends to Twitter after the Twitter files, 11 days after the first Twitter file.
Who are you? Who are they?
5 of them come out. The FTC's first demand in that first letter after the Twitter files come out is identify all journalists. I'm quote.
Identify them. You know what? That's what fucking Nazis do. That's what fascists do. That's what fucking dictators do. Right? That's what the goddamn FTC did under the Biden administration. Just a few months ago. Those are damning charges, and they're all true.
Identify all journalists and other members of the media.
You know, little big head over on his shitcast over there, he doesn't want to cover this part of the trial of the testimony, does he? Oh, what's wrong? What's wrong, little Mikey? Doesn't like it? Oh, Mikey, he doesn't like it. Little Mikey, he doesn't like it. Little big head doesn't like this part.
Whom Twitter worked with. You find that scary, Mr. Taibbi, that you got a federal government agency asking a private company, who in the press are you talking with?
Yeah, I do find it scary. I think it's none of the government's business which journalists a private company talks to and why. I think every journalist should be concerned about that, and the absence of interest in that issue by my fellow colleagues in the mainstream media is an indication of how low the business has sunk. There was once a real esprit de corps and camaraderie within media. Whenever one of us was gone after, we all kind of rose to the challenge and supported.
Used to be.
Yeah.
Used to be the case.
That is gone now. We don't protect one another.
You know what else used to happen? Democrats used to care about protecting First Amendment free speech rights too. Now it's like, okay, if you're attacking, and I said this on the House floor, I said, don't think they won't come for you. Oh, the
That's
big
what I
tech,
always
big
say.
media, cancel culture. They may come for Republicans and conservatives now, but they never. The money is never satisfied. They will keep coming.
That's what I always say.
Mr. Schellenberg, you know who the chair of the FTC is?
Not personally.
Lena Khan. You know who she used to work for?
My understanding is the Judiciary Committee?
Yeah, she's worked for these folks. The same folks have been attacking you today. Same folks. Chair of the FTC. Worked for them. Here's what they said. Here's what she said in a letter where they asked about who these journalists. Again, they named 4 journalists by name. You were 2 of the 4. As I said before, I think it's frankly courageous and brave of you to show up today when you know the federal government's got an eye on you personally. Here's what they asked for now.
Hey, yo, Jim Jordan, do Julian Assange next, bro. You're defending these journalists fantastically well. Can you do Julian Assange now? Get him out of frickin' prison? How about it? Jim Jordan, what do you say? Let's do it, man. Let's appeal to Jim Jordan. What do you think he'll say? Jim Jordan's comb over. Somebody's Jim Jordan's comb over. How do we find his... Is it James Jordan or something? No. I wonder what his Twitter is. We gotta find his. We gotta find his Twitter. So we'll just type it in. Jim Jordan on Twitter. At Jim_Jordan. That's easy. Got him. We got him. Jim Jordan. Great job on defending journalists' rights to report freely and without persecution. Can you do free Julian Assange next, please? Do you guys like that tweet? I think I'll make that my pinned tweet, because it's a tweet and reply, and you probably won't see it under my tweets. Yeah, I don't see it there. So you would go to reply, so I'll pin it. I should make that my background image. Here, let me change this really fast. Oh yeah. Boom. All right, now we're going to make this replies. It's under replies. Jim Jordan, great job on defending journalists' right to report freely and without persecution. Can you do free Julian Assange next, please? Pin to your profile. Pin. There it is. Okay, so if you guys go to @NaysGarden, you guys could like and retweet. Oh, somebody saw it. Great. Thank you for the view. You guys, if you guys want to send out a nice free Julian Assange, because, you know, he's this guy, everything that he's saying can be applied to Julian Assange. And Jim Jordan is doing a great job of defending Julian Assange in defending Matt Taibbi and the other gentleman he's got sitting next to him.
Any credentialing or background check Twitter has done on journalists. Now think about that. The federal government is saying, we want you to do a background check on members of the press. Freedom of the press mentioned in the First Amendment, and they're doing they want Twitter to do a background check on you before they can talk to you? In America, the FTC, led by Lena Khan, who used to work for these guys, is asking that question? Now we know. Now we all know why. You guys said at the outset, this is the most chilling story. And you guys are New York Times bestsellers, award-winning journalists, but in all your time in the journalism field, this issue, most important. And how this, I think, what do you call it, Mr. Schellenberg, this complex, what do you call it?
The censorship industrial complex.
Totally, this web of censorship, big government, big tech, NGOs, all this web of censorship that Mr. Bishop was getting into his line of questioning. That's what this committee's going to get to. And that's not right or left. This is just right or wrong. This is wrong. We know it's wrong, and it's about protecting the First Amendment. I get back. I now recognize the ranking member for her 5 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Mr. Taibbi, the emails and documents you've produced all date to around 2020. Is that correct?
No, there's a significant portion of them from 2017 and 2018 as well.
Thank you. And Mr. Schellenberger, what dates do you have?
I believe that we had emails including 2022, 2021, 2020. That's also true. 2019.
And Mr. Taibbi said 2018. Do you have 2018 as well?
I can't remember.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Taibbi, how many employees did Twitter employ in approximately the time period of 2020, 2021? Do you know?
I don't.
Okay, it was 7,500. Do you know how many were in its legal team during that time period?
I don't. I'm sorry.
And do you know how many were in its public policy team?
I don't.
Mr. Schellenberger, do you know how many were employed in content moderation during that time?
I do not know.
Okay. So we're looking at thousands of employees overall, and hundreds in offices were the focus of emails and documents you released. I will ask you, Mr. Schellenberger, how many emails did Mr. Musk give you access to?
I mean, we went through thousands of emails.
Did he give you access to all of the emails for the time period in which?
Yeah, I never had a single request denied. And not only that, but the amount of files that we were given were so voluminous that there was no way that anybody could have gone through them beforehand. And we never found an instance where there was any evidence that anything had been taken out.
Okay, so you would believe that you have probably millions of emails and documents, right? That's correct? Would you say?
I don't know. I think the number's less too high.
Okay, 100,000?
That's probably
Yeah. Probably close to 100,000 that both of you are saying. Yet in the Twitter files, Mr. Taibbi, you've produced only 338 of those 100,000 emails. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
And then who gave you access to these emails? Who was the individual that gave you permission to access the emails?
Well, the attribution from my story is sources at Twitter, and that's what I'm going to refer to.
Okay. Did Mr. Musk contact you, Mr. Taibbi?
Again, the attribution from my story is sources at Twitter.
Mr. Schellenberger, did Mr. Musk contact you?
Actually, no. I was brought in by my friend Barry Weiss, and so this story, there's been a lot of misinformation.
So Mr. Weiss brought you in. Mr. Taibbi, Ms. Weiss, thank you. Mr. Taibbi, have you had conversations with Elon Musk?
I have.
Okay. Mr. Taibbi, did Mr. Musk place any conditions on the use of the
Gentle lady, you for a second.
as long as my time is not used.
Are you trying to get journalists?
No, I'm not trying to get. No, I'm not.
Well,
I am asking.
like it.
No, well, if you will let me finish. And you had conversations with him. Not where you said you weren't going to agree to who your sources were. I'm not asking you your source. I'm asking you if you had conversations with the owner of Twitter. And did Mr. Musk place any conditions on your use of the emails or documents?
No, in fact, I was told explicitly that we were given license to look at present-day Twitter as well as past Twitter.
So you had unfiltered access to Twitter's internal communications and systems?
Yes.
Would those include HR files?
No. We did not have access to personal information of any kind. In fact, we signed a waiver
Have you
foregoing.
produced that waiver to the members of anyone on this committee or any staff?
I'd be happy to
Have
produce
you?
it. I haven't, but I'd be
Have
happy.
you given all of the access to what you were given by your source to this committee?
No, and I would never do that.
Okay, I didn't ask if you were given the committee, the individuals, but all of the files, no, you have not?
No.
So what we're getting is your dissemination, your decision as to what was important and not important in that, correct?
Which is true in every news story.
In every story. But you have files that you say you are sharing, but those files are just a smaller period of the files, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And the FTC investigation of Twitter, you knew that they were investigating Twitter before the time period that Mr. Musk came on?
I was aware of it, yes.
And the FTC was concerned with user data being hacked or used? Is that correct, that they didn't have enough checks and balances on that data?
Well, I wasn't privy to that part.
Have you seen the consent decree?
No, I have not.
Okay, well, the consent decree is concerned with user data, which would be probably the reason that they were concerned if they're giving files to journalists that potentially data about users as well as data about individuals and employees would be given to them.
My understanding
So
is
I
that
didn't
they
ask
didn't
a question. I didn't ask you a question, sir. Okay? So do you know that Elon Musk paid $44 billion for Twitter? Is that correct, Mr. Schellenberger? Were you aware of that?
Yes, I read that.
And did you know that he received that part of the funding from Saudi Arabia as well as Qatar?
I heard that.
And did you know that one of those individuals who owns Binance, was the company Binance, while he has Canadian citizenship, he is a Chinese national? Were you aware of that?
I did not know that.
Okay, and that he stated that that was for the cause. But thank you very much for answering my questions. I yield back.
Chair, now recognize the gentlelady from Wyoming for 5 minutes. Would the gentlelady yield for 20 seconds?
Yes.
I thank the gentlelady for yielding. I just think this is interesting. First, the FTC is asking for your background, and now the ranking member of the Committee on the Weaponization of Government is asking for your sources. If
I
that
never
doesn't
asked them
raise-
for their sources.
Yes,
I
you
did not
We-
ask for sources.
Well,
I asked if
the
they were
gentlelady's
talking
not-
to
the
Elon
gentlelady's
Musk,
not
and they
recognized.
said that they were not talking. Well, you are not going to say
I
I've asked for
will
sources.
yield back to the
Thank
gentlelady.
you.
I thank her for
With
yielding.
respect, you asked me who gave it.
I asked you who gave it to you, and once you said that they were your sources, I then asked you if you had spoken with Elon Musk. I did not ask you who those sources were.
The
For
gentlelady
the
from
record.
Wyoming is
Record correct.
recognized, and she will receive an additional 20 seconds. The gentlelady is recognized for 5 minutes of questioning.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to our witnesses for being here today and all of your important work that you have put into writing the Twitter files. Thank you for your willingness to come here and be subjected to the kind of abuse that we've observed when all you're trying to do is talk about the importance of the First Amendment and why the federal government should not be doing what they did and what has been evidenced in the Twitter files. I often say that sunshine is the best disinfectant, and boy, after listening to you and reading the reports that I have, does our federal government need to be fumigated. Mr. Taibbi, I'd like to focus on Twitter Files Part 9, Twitter and other government agencies, as I think a lot of the evidence you present in this section touches on the major takeaways that are so important for Americans to understand about the seriousness of what was found in the Twitter files. In your testimony describing the cooperation between the federal government and tech companies like Twitter, you stated, quote, "A focus of this growing network is making lists of people whose opinions, beliefs, associations, or sympathies are deemed to be misinformation, disinformation, or malinformation," end quote. What's interesting to me is that what is missing from that list is the word unlawful.
It's true, yes.
And so it notably seems to be missing from the FBI's lexicon. In Part 9 of the Twitter files, Mr. Taibbi notes that the main conduit sending requests to Twitter would routinely label these flags as violations of Twitter's terms of service. Even Jim Baker, a Twitter employee at the time and someone who is allegedly a former general counsel of the FBI, stated, quote, "But also odd that they are searching for violations of our policies." Mr. Taibbi, what was the approximate percentage of the FBI requests to Twitter being based on the justification that the tweet violated the company's terms of service?
Ms. Congressman, I would say that that was a standard disclosure or a standard disclaimer in almost all the communications from the FBI to Twitter. There would usually be a line in there saying something like, "For your consideration, we believe the following 207 accounts may have violated your terms of service." But notably, they very rarely focused on words like truth or inaccuracy. Very often, they use the words malinformation, misinformation, or disinformation. And so I think they were trying to shift the focus from one idea to the other.
Okay, I think that's interesting as well. What do you make of the finding that the FBI found it its responsibility to police violation of a private company's terms of service as a priority over policing violations of U.S. federal law?
There were a couple of very telling emails that we published. One was by a lawyer named Sasha Cardiel, where the company was being so overwhelmed by requests from the FBI, and in fact, they gave each other a sort of digital high five after one batch, saying that was a monumental undertaking to clear all of these. But she noted that she believed that the FBI was essentially doing word searches keyed to Twitter's terms of service, looking for violations of terms of service, specifically so that they could make recommendations along those lines, which we found interesting.
Do you believe it's the FBI's responsibility to police the terms of service for a private company?
I do not. I think you cannot have a state-sponsored anti-disinformation effort and also without directly striking at the whole concept of free speech. I think the two ideas are in direct conflict, and this is a fundamental misunderstanding, I think, of a lot of the people who get into this world. Some of them, I believe, in a well-meaning way. I think they're actually trying to accomplish something positive, but they don't understand what free speech means and what happens when you do this. It undermines the whole concept that truth isn't mandated, that we arrive at it through debate and discussion.
Well, in fact, wouldn't you agree with me that the First Amendment is broader than Twitter's terms of service?
Absolutely, yes. Yeah.
And wouldn't you also agree with me that the FBI is responsible for complying with the First Amendment, not Twitter's terms of service?
I would hope so, yes. Yeah.
You also highlighted the presence of people like Jim Baker at Twitter. And again, I've noted that he is allegedly a former FBI employee. Part 9 also speaks of a former other government association employees working at Twitter. What was the extent to which you found former FBI or other intelligence community employees working at Twitter? And did you find it odd?
There was a significant quantity of people who had come from the intelligence world or who had worked at state agencies. In fact, that was a very common method by which members of people who were currently working in government would reach out to Twitter. For instance, we found an email by a current State Department official who reached out to a former State Department official asking that 14 ordinary Americans have their accounts deleted. That was in a recent Twitter Files release. So yes, there's an extraordinary number of these people. A lot of them come from the intelligence world, which we did find unusual, I think.
Okay, thank you very much, and I yield back.
The latest time is expired. I think the gentleman from California is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I still try to figure out where all of this is going to go. But we've heard a lot from our Republican colleagues claiming that somehow all of this interaction has led to Twitter censoring conservative voices. And I really want to look at what the evidence is that that has or has not happened. In 2020, Twitter commissioned an objective study to examine whether its algorithms disproportionately promotes conservative or liberal voices. This was a massive study by researchers from the University of Cambridge and Berkeley. The analysis examined millions of Twitter accounts and 6.2 million news articles that were shared within the United States. The study results were quite clear. Twitter's algorithms actually amplifies conservative voices far more than liberal voices. So whatever comes of this question about pressure from the federal government, at least up until 2020, it didn't have an effect. A separate study, this one from Indiana University, found that partisan accounts, especially conservative accounts, tend to receive more followers and follow more automated accounts. So, Mr. Talibi and Mr. Schallenberger, are you familiar with these studies?
I am.
Very good. Then you know that whatever you may be trying to tell us, the effect on Twitter didn't happen.
No, I don't agree.
Excuse me, it's my time, thank you. I can also give you many real analytical studies based on actual evidence. But since I have only 5 minutes, Mr. Chairman, if I might enter into the record these studies of what actually is going on at Twitter with regard to censorship or not censorship. Mr. Chairman, may I enter those into the file? Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I take that silence as a yes.
Did you identify the document? I'm sorry.
Certainly. These documents, studies that were done by universities. And
We usually take a little bit, it takes a little bit more for unanimous consent than these documents, but without objection, we'll accept them into the record.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. These studies found that to the extent that far-right accounts are being suspended, it's not because of their ideology, but because they are spreading conspiracy theories like QAnon. You can see those up on the board. Talk about nonsense. QAnons, are you really ready for these dots? Where in the country is gone? The rest of the world will go. Q is real. On and on. They're up there, and they're now part of the file also. This type of speech that perhaps our Republican colleagues believe social media platforms, all of whom, by the way, are private companies, not government, are somehow obligated to post. No matter how crazy, how offensive a post might be, these private companies presumably must advance the lies, conspiracy theories, personal attacks promoted by radicals. Now, I'm pretty sure that if the Democrats held a hearing today to force Fox News to post certain content, my Republican colleagues would be up in arms. And this is particularly ironic because we know for a fact that Fox News does spread disinformation and does so while knowing that the material is false. We've learned from the Dominion lawsuit that Fox hosts lied about the 2020 election. Its executives knew they were lying, and yet they were allowed to continue peddling their lies. Now, here's a reporter speaking to this issue, a Fox News reporter. He said, dangerously insane. There's 2 Fox executives describing Fox's decision to push forward election lies as chasing the nuts off the cliff. There are 2 other quotes, 2 other tweets that I think we ought to be aware of. And Fox News was promoting it. They were promoting Trump's lies. Quote up there, big protest in D.C. on January 6th. Be there, will be wild. A call to arms, and all of us in this building know the result of that call. A second one, Mike Pence didn't have the courage to do what needed to be done to protect our country. This is the speech that my Republican colleagues would have us to believe is being wrongly, quote unquote, censored by social media companies. It's offensive, it's absurd. No private company has an obligation to amplify anything, and especially not messages that strike at the heart of our democracy. I yield back.
Okay, wait, let me stop right there.
Gentleman yields back.
Let me stop right there. In those 2 particular cases, I agree with him. You know, he's inciting a frickin' insurrection. So, yeah, that's a violation of their terms of service. Plain and simple. I'm not allowed to incite an insurrection on frickin' AOL. You know, neither is frickin' Trump, you know?
5 minutes.
On the
Chairman,
AOL,
thank you,
on the America Online.
I suppose this is maybe a little bit outside your
That's
comfort zone.
what
You didn't find
we're
yourself with this
on.
kind of attention when you began this endeavor, but
my
I appreciate the
social
courage and the commitment
media.
you've made to doing that. We may not agree on a lot of things when it comes to policy and politics, but I think we agree on our concern regarding the topic today. And I'll actually follow on from my Democratic friend and colleague and the things that he has said, because I agree with him. Private companies, I mean, Twitter, Facebook, they can ban whoever they want. They can mute. They can deplatform. They can set up whatever policy they want, and they have the ability to do that. I don't care about that. I agree with that. They should have that authority. The thing that we're concerned about is when the federal government, by proxy, essentially contracts this out. Because the federal government can't ban speech. They can define time and place, but they cannot ban content. And anyone would be foolish to think that when the FBI comes to a private company and highlights speech, and then would expect them to do nothing. Of course they would respond to that. The FBI knew they would respond to that. The FBI expected them to respond to that. And I could use a couple analogies if I could, and they sound dramatic, but they're exactly right. It's illegal for the United States to assassinate a foreign leader. It would be illegal for the United States to pay $3.2 million to someone to go assassinate a foreign leader.
Yeah,
It's illegal in some cases.
It's
so
also illegal to coup a government, and that's exactly what you did to Ukraine in 2014. So, hey, Jim Jordan, how about investigating that too while you're at it? Since we're all looking into government corruption and all, this is great.
illegal, but we would have to have a policy debate whether we would invade another country. It would be illegal for the United States to pay a private company like the Wagner Group in Russia to go and fight their battles for them. And that's exactly what the FBI did here. They said, well, we can't do this ourselves. We'll contract it out. We'll launder this effort through another company. And I would just ask you to respond to that. Do you think I'm overly dramatic, or do you think I'm wrong in my characterization of what we see here?
I don't. I think that's absolutely correct. Freedom of speech is the foundation for our democracy, and what we've seen here is federal government putting extraordinary amounts of pressure both on Twitter and Facebook. And we haven't talked about Facebook, but we now know that we have the White House demanding that Facebook take down factual information, and Facebook doing that. And with Matt's thread this morning, we saw the government contractors demanding the same thing of Twitter. Accurate information, they said, that needed to be taken down in order to advance a narrative.
And I have to interrupt just to agree with you. For heaven's sakes, again, we've heard over here, well, they got to take, Fox News lies. There's a reason that 20% of the people trust media.
Dude,
oh my gosh, if you want to have a conversation about lies and deception media, I would.
Even real?
I'm saying, brother.
He looks silicone.
It is so funny that you just said that. I just noticed how weird that guy looked. And the first thing I was like is, look at this weird goatee, dude. And then I was like, look at the weird tie and the horrible jacket. And of course, he's got his little American flag pin up high on his little lapel because he's a little frickin' poser. It's crazy.
Love to engage in that because we've seen plenty of it over the last 6 years, and it's not coming from just Fox News. New York Times, CBS, NBC, every single one of them were saying things that they knew was not true. And they didn't say it once, they said it for years. And the White House, again, trying to stifle things that they know is true, but it doesn't fit their narrative. And I got to give one illustration in the few minute I have left. When you have an agent, Mr. Chan, who goes to his Twitter and says, please see below a list of Twitter accounts which we believe violate your terms of service. I mean, how do you respond to that and defend that? Yeah, FBI should be looking at other private companies' policies and then highlighting, hey, these people might be violating your policies. Either one of you, Mr. Taibbi.
If I could, I think thank you, Mr. Congressman, and there's an important point. In conjunction with our own research, there's a foundation, the Foundation for Freedom Online, which, there's a very telling video that they uncovered where the director of Stanford's Election Integrity Partnership talks about how CISA, the DHS agency, didn't have the capability to do election monitoring, and so that they kind of stepped in to fill the gaps legally before that capability could be amped up. And what we see in the Twitter files is that Twitter executives did not distinguish between DHS or CISA and this group EIP. For instance, we would see a communication that said, from CISA escalated by EIP. So they were essentially identical in the eyes of the company. EIP, by its own data, and this is in reference to what you brought up, Mr. Congressman, according to their own data, they significantly targeted more what they call disinformation on the right than on the left by a factor, I think, of about 10 to 1. And I say that it's not a Republican at all. It's just a fact of what we're looking at. So yes, we have come to the realization that this bright line that we imagine that exists between, say, the FBI or the DHS or the GEC and these private companies is illusory, and that what's more important is this constellation of kind of quasi-private organizations that do this work.
Well, and we're over time, so I'll conclude with re-emphasizing this. By a factor of 10 to 1, they tried to mute conservative thought. And the federal government cannot contract out suppression of free expression. Chairman, thank you.
Thank you. Gentleman's time has expired. The gentleman from Texas is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Right,
I get that last time. I
it was
apologize.
quick. He said by a factor of 10 to 1, they tried to mute conservative opinions on social media. That's what Jack at Twitter was doing. Absolutely. They proved it. These Democrats that were benefiting from that, those are the ones that are all bitching right now and trying to character assassinate and smear the two really well-established journalists that are in front of them right now, testifying in front of them. It's psychotic.
Chairman. Mr. Taibbi, I want to follow up a little bit on the ranking member's questions.
No law regarding cannabis, Billy. Cheers. Cheers, everybody.
Musk approached you about writing.
Cheers. Cheers to everybody.
Again,
I just need a date, sir.
But I can't give it to you, unfortunately, because this is a question of sourcing, and I don't give up. I'm a journalist. I don't reveal my sources.
It's a question of chronology.
No, that's a question
because
of sourcing.
You earlier said that someone had sent you through the internet some message about whether or not you would be interested in some information.
Yes, and I referred to that person as a source.
So you're not going to tell us when Musk first approached you?
Again, Congressman, you're asking a journalist to reveal a source.
So then you consider Mr. Musk to be the direct source of all this?
No, now you're trying to get me to say that he is the source. I
well,
just
if
can't answer
he
your
is or
question.
he isn't, if you're telling me you can't answer because it's your source, well, then the only logical conclusion is that he is, in fact, your source.
Well, you're free to conclude that.
Well, sir, I just don't understand. You can't have it both ways, but let's move on because
No, he can. He's a journalist.
No, he can't, because either Musk is the source and he can't talk about it, or Musk is not the source. And if Musk is not the source, then he can discuss
No one
his
has yielded. The
conversations
gentlelady's
with
out of order. You don't
and
get to
she's
speak
out of
every
order
time.
because
not
he's
recognized.
interrupted.
The gentlelady's not
Chairman, you're not
recognized.
recognized.
He's not said that. What he has said is he's not going to reveal his source, and the fact that Democrats are pressuring him to do so is such
You're
an
not. We're asking him about his conversations with Musk.
The gentlelady has not yielded you time. You don't
I
get
have not
to talk
yielded
over
time
Musk.
to anybody. I want to reclaim my time, and I would ask the chairman to give me back some of the time because of the interruption. Mr. Chairman,
I hope
I'm
so.
asking you if you will
I
give
hope
me
she
the
does.
seconds that I
I
lost.
hope
We will
she
give you that
does.
10 seconds.
Thank you. Now let's talk about another item that when you responded to the ranking member. You said that you had free license to look at everything, but yet you yourself posted on your I guess it's kind of like a web page. I don't quite understand what Substack is, but that what I can say is that in exchange for the opportunity to cover a unique and explosive story, I had to agree to certain conditions. What were those conditions? She asked you that question, and you said you had none, but you yourself posted that you had conditions.
No, the conditions, as I've explained multiple times.
No, sir, you've not explained. You told her in response to her question that you had no conditions. In fact, you kind of used the word license, that you were free to look at all of them.
Whoa. He started giving you the conditions, and then you cut him off, and then you started bitching like a little bitch. So stop bitching like a little bitch and let Matt speak.
100,000 emails.
I was the question was posed was I free to write about?
Sir, did you have any conditions?
The condition was that we publish.
Sir, did you
on
have
Twitter.
any conditions? Yes or no? A simple question.
Hey,
yes.
Billy.
All right, could you tell us what the...
All of the Democrats are feigning dumb. You know, this is how they try to achieve their narrative. Oh, I don't even know what a Substack is. I'm a fucking senator or a representative of the United States government. You don't know what a fucking Substack is? Well, maybe that's the problem. That's the fucking problem with our government right there. Our leaders don't even know where the best reporting is. Wow.
Conditions were an attribution, sources at Twitter, and that we break any news on Twitter.
But you didn't break it on Twitter. Did you send the file that you released today to Twitter first?
Did I send the?
Sir,
actually,
I'm
I did.
asking you
Yes.
today.
Yeah.
Did you send it to Twitter first?
The Twitter
That was
files
one of the
thread?
conditions? Yes or no, sir?
The Twitter files thread actually did come out first.
But sir, you said earlier that you had to attribute all the sources to Twitter first. What you released today, did you send that to Twitter first?
No. I posted it on Twitter.
First, sir. Or did you give it to the ranking member, to the chairman of the committee or the staff of the committee first?
Well, that's not breaking the story. That's giving. Yes, I did give.
So you gave all the information that you did not give to the Democrats. You gave it to the Republicans first. Then you put it on Twitter?
Actually, no. The chronology is a little bit confused.
Well, then,
It's more or
tell
less
us
the
what the
same time.
chronology was.
I believe the thread came out first
Where?
on Twitter.
On Twitter. So then you afterwards gave it to the Republicans and not the Democrats.
Yes, because I'm submitting it for the record as my statement.
Did you give it to them in advance?
I gave it to them today.
You gave it to them today, but you still have not given anything to the Democrats. Well, I'll move on. And I wanted to ask Mr. Schellenberger the same question, sir. When did you first visit with or get contacted by Mr. Musk?
I'm not going to reveal my sources, but like I said, I was invited by Barry Weiss.
I'm not asking for sources, sir. I'm just asking for chronology. When did you first make contact with Mr. Musk?
I don't know the exact date.
Was it?
It was December. It was December.
December of, well, there's a lot of Decembers in
December of
history.
last year.
Which December?
December of last year, ma'am.
Last year, the 22?
Yes.
All right. Now, in your discussion, in your answer, you also said that you were invited by a friend, Barry Weiss.
My friend Barry Weiss.
So this friend works for Twitter, or what is her?
She's a journalist.
Sir, I didn't ask you a question. I'm now asking Mr. Schellenberger a question.
Yes,
Please
ma'am.
do not
Barry Weiss is
interrupt.
a journalist.
I'm sorry, sir?
She's a journalist.
She's a journalist. So you work in concert with her?
Yeah.
Do you know when she first was contacted by Mr. Musk?
I don't know.
You don't know. So you're in this as a threesome?
There was many more people involved in that.
There was many more people involved with it. Are you being paid to be here today, either through consulting fees,
No,
campaign contributions to your
absolutely
next
not.
run?
Gentlelady's
Do you
time
have
is-
an interview scheduled after
time
this
is
hearing?
expired.
Absolutely not.
Gentlelady's time is expired.
Thank you.
I don't know what to
What
say
a
other than I'll
clown
recognize the gentleman from
show.
North Dakota for 5
And
minutes.
they're laughing at the clown show. I
I
love
appreciate the
it.
gentleman yielding. I do think it's
They're
worth pointing
like
out that
they're
I have
chuckling
co-sponsored.
at
I think
the
some of my colleagues have
clown
co-sponsored the SHIELD Act in previous Congresses with Democrats to protect what we see them trying to do today, protect journalists from having to reveal their sources to government. That used to be a shared position in the Congress. Unfortunately, as we're seeing now, multiple occasions, it's not the position anymore. Mr. Schellenberger, I want to go to Twitter Files Part 7. I related a lot of what you put in there in my opening statement. And I want to give you as much time as you want, because I'm going to read the very first sentence, because something jumped out at me when I read the first sentence. In Twitter Files number 7, the FBI and the Biden laptop. You say this: how the FBI and intelligence community discredited factual information about the Biden foreign business dealings both after and before the New York Post revealed the contents of his laptop on October 14th, 2020. And what kind of jumped out at me was the way you framed it, because you did it backwards from what it's normally said. Normally you would say, the sentence would read foreign business dealings both before and after. But I assume you did that for a reason, because in fact, I think the next sentence, you say social media companies discredit leaked information about Hunter Biden before and after. You use the normal, customary way in the second sentence, but the first sentence strikes me as you were trying to emphasize the before component of that statement. And I want you to just walk us through why you said that, because when I read it, it certainly was an operation both before and after, as you said, after and before.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Reading through the whole sweep of events, I do not know the extent to which the influence operation aimed at pre-bunking the Hunter Biden laptop was coordinated. I don't know who all was involved, but what we saw was you saw Aspen and Stanford many months before then saying, don't cover the material in the hacking leak without emphasizing the fact that it could be disinformation. Okay, so they're priming journalists to not cover a future hacking leak in a way that journalists have
Okay, I don't know who Aspen and Stanford are. And, you know, I heard that before. I could see it on the screen. And I have no idea what he's referring to, who that is, if it's people or what.
With in the tradition of the Pentagon Papers, made famous by the Steven Spielberg movie. They were saying, cover the fact that it probably came from the Russians. Then you have the former general counsel to the FBI, Jim Baker, the former deputy chief of staff to the FBI, both arriving at Twitter in the summer of 2020, which I find what an interesting coincidence. Then when the New York Post publishes its first article on October 14th, it's Jim Baker who makes the most strenuous argument within Twitter. Multiple emails, multiple messages saying this doesn't look real. There's intelligence experts saying that this could be Russian disinformation. He is the most strenuous person inside Twitter arguing that it's probably Russian disinformation. The internal evaluation by Yoel Roth, who testified in front of this committee, was that it was what it looked to be, which was that it was not a result of a hack and leak operation. And why did he think that? Because the New York Post had published the FBI subpoena taking the laptop in December of 2019, and they published the agreement that the computer store owner had with Hunter Biden that gave him permission after he abandoned the laptop to use it however he wanted. So there really wasn't much doubt about the provenance of that laptop. But you had Jim Baker making a strenuous argument, and then of course you get to a few days after the October 14th release, you have the President of the United States echoing what these former intelligence community officials were saying, which is that it looked like a Russian influence operation. Yeah. So they were claiming that the laptop was made public by a conspiracy theory, and the conspiracy theory that somehow the Russians got it, and basically they convinced Yoel Roth that they convinced him this wild hack and leak story, that somehow the Russians stole it, got the information, gave it to the computer store, and it was bizarre. So you read that chain of events, and it appears as though there was an organized influence operation to pre-bunk.
Why do you think they could predict the time, the method, and the person? Why could the FBI predict it? Not only did they predict it, they predicted it. So did the Aspen Institute. It seemed like everyone was in the know, saying, "Here's what's going to happen. We can read the future." How do you think they were able to do that?
I think the most important fact to know is that the FBI had that laptop in December 2019. They were also spying on Rudy Giuliani when he got the laptop and when he gave it to the New York Post. Now, maybe the FBI agents who were going to Mark Zuckerberg at Facebook and to Twitter executives and warning of a hack and leak, potentially involving Hunter Biden, maybe those guys didn't have anything to do with the guys that had the laptop. We don't know that. And I have to say, as a newcomer to this, as somebody that thought it was Russian disinformation in 2020, every day I knew that was Russian, I was shocked to see that series of events going on. It looked to me like a deliberate influence operation. I don't have the proof of it, but the circumstantial evidence is pretty disturbing.
It's pretty overwhelming. Thank you, Mr. Selman. Now recognize the gentleman from New York, Mr. Goldman, for 5 minutes.
Oh, I think it's Mr. Allred first.
Oh, I'm sorry. You just walked in. Recognize the gentleman from Texas. Go right ahead.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to ask unanimous consent to enter a few tweets into the record.
Sure. Can you identify the tweets?
Let's see it. I think staff should have them. Can we put the tweets up on the screen?
So this guy's like a little bitch.
Let's take a look at a couple of tweets
for the Democrats.
Kanye West, who now goes by Ye.
He's a bitch for the Democrats.
32 million followers. Taibbi, can you read the tweet on left? You see the text there?
I actually can't. My eyesight is not so great.
I'll read it to you. It says, "I'm a bit sleepy tonight, but when I wake up, I'm going DEFCON 3 on Jewish people," in all caps. The funny thing is, I actually can't be anti-Semitic because black people are actually Jews.
To read this
also,
on my,
you guys have told me try to blackball anyone who ever
on
opposes your
my
agenda.
show. I'm sorry. He's reading a tweet from Kanye West. Algorithm. This is not me. I don't agree with what Kanye's saying here, and I apologize for this moron saying this out loud on YouTube. I completely forgot he did that in the context of that tweet. My bad.
Can't have freedom without the freedom to be wrong.
Let's move on to a couple of other tweets, not from somebody with 32 million followers. This one says, "Elon now controls Twitter. Unleash the racial slurs, K-word and N-word." The other one says, "I can freely express how much I hate N-words now. Thank you, Elon." See, these tweets were taken down, even by Elon Musk's Twitter, and they should have been, because they're hate speech. And they lead to real-world reactions. In fact, in the 12 hours after Elon Musk's acquisition of Twitter, hate speech of all kinds spiked on Twitter, including a 500% increase in the use of the N-word. And it's not just online. From 2021.
Irrelevant. Strawman has absolutely nothing to do with the issue at hand here. Once again, it's like going after who helped fund Twitter in blaming what was conducted, the business that was conducted before Elon even acquired it. Wow.
2021, hate crimes rose almost 44% in major cities. So hate speech online has real impacts in life. And so does election misinformation and propaganda online. And Mr. Taibbi, I've read a lot of your work, respect some of it, but you cast a lot of doubt on Russian interference in our elections, and today you have virtually alleged a vast government conspiracy to censor speech. But I can tell you that the threat to our democracy, I'm not asking you a question, I'll let you know when I do. I can say that the threat to our democracy is very real. And it's not just the elections that get all the headlines. In 2018, in a congressional race, 2 Kremlin-aligned foreign nationals named Lev Parnas and Igor Fruman succeeded in funneling illegal Russian money to a Trump-aligned super PAC that spent $1.3 million to support the Republican candidate. That was my election. My neighbors in East Dallas saw advertisements online, in their mailbox, and on their TV, paid with Russian money. That's not my opinion. That's a fact, proven in the Southern District of New York. Both Parnas and Fruman were convicted to 21 months and 1 year, respectively, or conspiring to make political contributions by a foreign national, along with other campaign finance-related violations. We live in an information age where malign actors do want to use social media to influence our elections, both big, the ones that you spend a lot of time talking about, and small, like mine.
Mr. Congressman,
it should be a bipartisan goal. No, you don't get to ask questions here. Okay. It should be a bipartisan goal to ensure that Americans and only Americans determine the outcome of our elections, not fear-mongering. And I hope that you can actually take this with you, because I honestly hope that you will grapple with this.
No, they
it may
won't,
be possible
because you won't even
that
let
you
them
take off the
talk.
tinfoil hat.
So fuck
but there's
you.
not a vast conspiracy.
I got a
but that ordinary
tinfoil
folks
hat for you right here,
and national
bitch.
security
Take that
agencies responsible for our
tinfoil
security are trying their best to find a way to make sure that our online discourse doesn't get people hurt or see our democracy undermined. And the very rights you think they're trying to undermine, they may be trying to protect. You'll back.
Oh, whatever. Yeah, by controlling speech.
I want to talk about the weaponization of the
so
CDC against the American people,
right
and this overlaps with one of the Twitter files, number 13 by my count, actually by Alex Berenson, not one of our two witnesses, but I would like your comment on it. A week before Christmas 2020, the vaccines came out. The FDA curated the Pfizer trial results, and then the CDC curated the FDA's opinion. The CDC said in their MMWR, which is never peer-reviewed, they're very proud it's not peer-reviewed, they treat it like science, it's not science. They said that the vaccine was 92% efficacious for people who had already had COVID. The Pfizer trial data said no such thing. In fact, there was no support for that claim. So I called up the head of the CDC.
So, this rhetoric right here, it may or may not be misinformation considered by the algorithm on YouTube. So I don't want to play any more of that. And let me just say, I don't support anything he was saying. If YouTube disagrees with it, man, don't come after me. I am not claiming anything that he said is true.
More of my conversations with the CDC, completely redacted the subject thereof. Next one, please. I also found as a result of the FOIA, CDC tracks every tweet that a congressman puts out. Not just Republican, but Democrat. They keep a spreadsheet, they make it every week. This showed up in the FOIA for me, because I'm in their spreadsheet that they track. Why is this interesting? Okay, so they're tracking congressmen's tweets at CDC. They're enrolled in the partner support portal at Twitter. And then I found Alex Berenson's report very interesting, because what he found out is that Todd Gottlieb worked hard and Twitter complied.
What he just said is they're enrolled in the partner support portal at Twitter. This is how they all got these accounts blocked or banned or subverted or ghosted or muted or shadow banned or whatever. All of these agencies were part of this portal.
A tweet from a doctor about natural immunity. Guess what? On the same day that doctor's tweet was censored, so were my tweets on natural immunity. Why is this important? What is consequential about the date? This is 3 days after the military vaccine mandate came out and a week before the federal vaccine mandates came out. Okay, so this truth was toxic to a narrative.
He's still talking rhetoric around the vaxes, and I really can't. I can't let that go over my YouTube channels, because YouTube's a bunch of big.
They need minders to separate out things that are controversial or difficult for them. And that's totally contrary to what America's all about, I think.
I'll just briefly add, this is very disturbing, because what they're doing when they're putting these labels on there is they're actually...
Cheers, the mailman. You guys remember the mailman from Cheers? What was his name? Is that the cameraman behind this dude?
Also trying to discredit you. So it's not just, it's a form of censorship, but it's also a disinformation campaign. And I think what Matt says is really important to understand. I mean, you go from a situation where we were fighting ISIS recruiting, and then it was Russian disinformation. Right? And now they're in a situation where they're wanting to censor true information, accurate facts, because they're worried that people might behave in ways that they don't want them to. That involves mind reading at a level that is grossly inappropriate. I mean, I worry even about making this defense, because let's remember, the First Amendment protects our right to be wrong. Mm-hmm. It protects our right to lie. I mean, it's bizarre to me that we would need to make a defense of the First Amendment and remind people that we have a right to be wrong. And being wrong, as Matt was explaining, is a big part of being a human being and having a democracy. So this is disturbing and chilling, and you're absolutely right to be outraged by it. There needs to be a full truth and reconciliation that I hope everybody would appreciate having on this issue, because a lot of bad behavior has come out about what they've done.
Thank you. Yield back. Good job. Gentleman's time has expired. We now recognize the gentleman from New York, Mr. Goldman.
Actually, excuse me, it's Ms. Sanchez.
I'm sorry.
And Mr. Chair, since that went over 2 minutes with them responding, will you give an additional time?
There's a question at the end of someone, it's customary, if there's a question at the end of someone's 5 minutes and the witnesses haven't responded, we'll give them time to do that. Many times you guys go over and then don't, there's no
I
questions.
understand that, but 2 minutes. Okay,
that's customary, so we'll certainly do that. Gentle lady from California is recognized. Excuse me.
I'd like to yield my time to Mr. Goldman.
Thank you, Ms. Sanchez. Mr. Schellenberger, first, I'd just like to compliment you on your choice of tie today. Seems like we're on the same page. I would also just like to respond to your last point and just remind everyone that, of course, we all believe in the First Amendment, but the First Amendment applies to government prohibition of speech, not to private companies. I want to talk about your Twitter files number 7, Mr. Schellenberger. Are you aware that Rudy Giuliani was the sole source of the hard drive obtained by the New York Post?
That is my understanding.
And are you aware that Rudy Giuliani had been openly cavorting with agents of Russian intelligence throughout 2020?
That is also my understanding.
Now, this was the same Russian agent who had been feeding information to Senators Johnson and Grassley, I might add. But also, are you aware that Rudy Giuliani told the New York Times that he did not want anyone to do an analysis of the hard drive until it was published?
I was not aware of that exactly, but
you don't dispute it?
I don't dispute it.
And are you aware that one of the New York Post reporters for the Hunter Biden story refused to put his byline on the story?
This guy's an idiot.
And are you aware that Fox News called the story, quote, very sketchy, unquote?
I'm aware that somebody at Fox News said that, yes.
Correct. Brett Baer at Fox News said that. And are you aware that the FBI had nothing to do with Twitter's decision to pause the New York Post story?
I am not aware of that.
Okay, well, let me read you the testimony from Yoel Roth at the hearing we had on February 8th. The FBI was quite careful and consistent to request review of the accounts, but not to cross the line into advocating for Twitter to take any particular action. And then Jim Baker said, in response to the chairman's question, when he asked, did you talk to the FBI about the Hunter Biden story? He said, to the best of my recollection, I did not talk to the FBI about the Hunter Biden story before that day. In other testimony, Yoel Roth said that the information that he received from the FBI had nothing to do with the Hunter Biden story. Now, are you aware that there was an analysis of the hard drive that was done by the Washington Post at a later date?
My awareness is that multiple media organizations have done analyses and found including CBS, and found that it was indeed, the laptop was authentic and that nothing had been changed on it.
So let's just get something clear. The laptop that the FBI had is different than the hard drive that Rudy Giuliani gave to the New York Post. A hard drive, you agree with this, is a copy from a laptop, right?
Yes.
And you are aware that hard drives can be altered, are you not?
Of course.
Okay. So are you aware that the Washington Post analysis of the hard drive showed that it had been altered?
I have heard that, but I'm also saying CBS have verified,
Politico,
and other media organizations have verified. I mean,
we're not talking about
really
we're not talking
argument.
about authenticity. We're not talking about authenticity. We're talking about whether it's been altered.
Yeah.
Okay. There's no question. There's some material on the hard drive that is authentic and accurate. But are you aware that there's some material that is not?
My understanding is that there are copies of the hard drive that have been tampered with, and that media organizations, including CBS, have verified that the laptop in question was not tampered with.
I don't know what the laptop in question, but let's move on, because you said in your Twitter files, am I correct, that every single fact in the New York Post story was accurate?
Yes.
Okay. Do you recall that the first paragraph of that Post story said that then Vice President Joe Biden pressured Ukraine to fire its prosecutor general because he was investigating Burisma, where Hunter Biden was on the board?
Yes.
Okay. I have here, which I'd like to enter into the record, the Trump-Ukraine Impeachment Inquiry Report, 300 pages by the House Intelligence Committee. Did you review this report before you said that every fact in the story was accurate?
No objection. The material be entered in the record.
Did I read that before I read the Twitter files? No.
Okay, if you read this, you would have known that every single State Department and Trump administration expert on Ukraine said that Vice President Joe Biden, in concert with the European Union and the IMF, was executing official U.S. policy by encouraging Ukraine to fire the prosecutor general because he was not prosecuting corruption and was not prosecuting companies like Burisma. So that story, notwithstanding your allegations, was false. And I yield back.
Gentleman, yield back. Now recognize the chair. Now recognize the gentleman from Florida, Mr. Gates, for 5 minutes.
Impeachment nostalgia always warms my heart, but we are here focused on a weaponized government, a whole of government approach that has been turned against the American people. And while Rudy Giuliani may have been running around with the laptop in 2020, what is an indisputable fact is that the FBI had the laptop in 2019. And it appears that the last round of questioning misses the boat, that it's true. The information is authentic. The pictures, the videos, the emails, there hasn't been a single allegation that there is a single doctored email. Unlike what we saw before the FISA courts, where the FBI itself was doctoring emails to try to smear President Trump. But I have to get to a question I'm amazed hasn't been asked of the two of you. This FTC consent decree, where it is government action subject to rigorous scrutiny under First Amendment standards, government action demanding that your names be listed. How did it feel when you found out that you were being expressly targeted by a government document based on your reporting?
It was chilling. I mean, it's disturbing. I never thought that would happen in the United States of America, to be perfectly honest. I've lived in a bunch of authoritarian countries. I've visited a lot of authoritarian countries. Never thought this kind of thing would be going on here.
And the nexus to authoritarianism is the desire to control the nature of truth itself. Our understandings change about things. We learn new things. We challenge prior assumptions. But if a bunch of people in Washington, D.C. get to decide what the truth is, and then enforce it on the country, and then punish and target those who report on their conduct, we are drifting more toward that. How did you feel, Mr. Taibbi, when you saw your name?
I was upset, obviously. I lived in Russia during the 90s and early 2000s. I was there when Putin took power. I was friends with a group of very brave, muckraking reporters in Russia, many of whom didn't make it. A few of them were murdered after Putin came to power. So I've always been conscious of how the risks that other reporters take in other countries are incredibly severe, and that's one of the reasons why I'm motivated to protect the First Amendment, because our country has the best protections for reporters in the world. But this kind of thing, where the government is looking for information about reporters, it's usually a canary in the coal mine that something worse is coming in terms of an effort to exercise control over the press. And so on that level, it's absolutely disturbing. Also, the Aspen Institute report that we published today, talked about today in the Twitter files thread, one of their recommendations was that the FTC be empowered to have unlimited power to search all data of private companies, so that they could more freely and more accurately search the speech of ordinary citizens.
So as we're trying to put downward pressure on the government's expanding authority to be able to engage in what we see mostly from dictatorships, what you're reporting and what you're observing is that actually they view this as a growth industry, the information business, right? This yes. Censorship industrial complex is a growth industry to the government.
I think the key thing also, yes, and the thing to understand is that NSF...
What is NewsGuard and how are they part of the censorship industrial complex?
Yeah, and by the way, we talked about Richard Stengel. He's on the board of NewsGuard. NewsGuard and the Disinformation Index are both U.S. government-funded entities who are working to drive advertiser revenue away from disfavored publications and towards the ones that they favor. This is
what I'm used to in this town is government officials pick their favorite outlets and they give them the best scoops and they give them the best stories, and there's a fusion of media and government that has long made me uncomfortable. But what you're describing now is literally the directing of revenue to certain media companies over other media companies, designed and implemented with U.S. government funding and support.
That's right.
That is an astonishing. If we do not take a look at NewsGuard, we have failed. And you talk about the brave reporting that occurs and what it subjects you to. I would suggest there's also political bravery that I have observed. While we've only heard from Democrats on this panel attacking you, discrediting you, a lot like they've tried to attack and discredit FBI whistleblowers who are truth tellers, there are brave Democrats who still believe in free speech. And I would advise my colleagues to look at the comments of Ro Khanna, who has been deeply, deeply concerned about this weaponization of government, and he believes these Twitter files are indeed worthy of our focus and our energy, and that is exactly what we are going to do. I yield back.
I think the gentleman would now recognize the gentlelady from New York.
I still have my 5 minutes, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, that's right. I forgot.
I understand what you mean.
Because you were yielded 5. The gentleman from New York is recognized for 5 minutes. Excuse me.
Mr. Schellenberger, I may have misheard earlier, but is it your testimony here today that you disagree with the 2 indictments by Special Counsel Robert Mueller that definitively established that Russia interfered in our 2016 election through social media disinformation and a hack and leak operation?
No, I don't disagree.
Okay, Mr. Taibbi, do you disagree with those 2 indictments?
Well, indictments aren't a thing to
disagree. Do you disagree? They're about 40 or 50 pages. Do you disagree with the evidence outlined in those indictments?
Well, indictments are just charges.
I just asked you, do you disagree with the evidence included in those indictments? Yes or no?
I'm not in the jury of that case. I couldn't possibly say yes or no.
Okay, because you said earlier, I believe, that you did not see Russia, you could not confirm that Russia interfered in our election in 2016, that you don't believe that. Is that your testimony here today? You don't believe that they did?
I think it's possible that they may have on a small scale, but certainly not to what's been reported.
What's been reported or what's been included in the indictments?
Well, again, indictments are allegations. They're not proof. And
I understand. It's pretty detailed allegations.
In the Mueller indictment, by the way.
You should go read the indictment and then come back and tell us if you actually think there's no proof of it.
Well,
but let me move on.
Let me move on, please. By the way,
please, let me move on. That's how this works. You should know that by now. So do you disagree with the Special Counsel Mueller's conclusion in his report, Mr. Taibbi, that the Trump campaign knew about Russia's interference, they welcomed it, and they used it for their benefit? You have no reason to disagree with that, don't you? You have no information. So after that foreign interference in our 2016 election, Twitter and other social media companies naturally wanted to work with the intelligence community to stop Vladimir Putin from interfering in our elections again. Mr. Taibbi, do you think it's a legitimate pursuit of the FBI to try to stop foreign interference in our elections?
Again, sir, will I be allowed to answer this question, or?
It's a yes or no question. Do you think it's a legitimate pursuit of the FBI?
It's not a yes or no answer.
No. I'm not asking how. I'm saying, as an objective, do you think it's a legitimate objective of the FBI to stop foreign interference in our elections?
I think it's a legitimate objective to stop actual foreign interference.
Okay. I mean, I don't know what the difference is, but that's fine.
Well,
since Russia used social media disinformation, according to Special Counsel Mueller, I understand you may disagree with the allegations, to interfere in our 2016 elections, are you trying to say that the FBI had no basis to inform social media companies about efforts to potentially interfere in our elections after 2016?
I can tell you that I read internal Twitter emails where Twitter expressly talked about the fact that the FBI couldn't possibly know more than they did about whether or not there was Russian interference, and that in fact, even they couldn't determine which accounts were actually IRA and which ones weren't.
Okay, I understand you like to.
Do you feel like Matt Taibbi is getting humiliated in this? Do you feel like he's owning all these motherfuckers? His little big head full of shit? Do I give you a more realistic take on reality, guys? Shouldn't there be more viewers watching this show than Little Big Head's show? Yeah.
Was not an answer to my question, but I'll move on. And Mr. Schellenberger, in all of the emails that you reviewed, did the FBI ever direct Twitter to take down any accounts or remove any posts?
Yes.
They directed Twitter to remove them, or they said these may violate your terms and services?
Yes. I think that's an accurate use of the word direct.
They said these may violate. You think that saying that these may
do.
violate your terms and conditions is the same as directing them to take an account down?
Yeah, I mean, I think if a police officer says,
all right, well, that's very helpful. That's very helpful. I'm glad to know that you think flagging something for a private company to make a decision about what they should do is a direction. Now, Mr. Chairman, you have repeatedly said that this committee is all about protecting the First Amendment.
Mm-hmm.
And what's unfortunate here is that we are talking about Twitter, and that we are not talking about Republican government officials around the country who are banning books. And we are not talking about...
Would the gentleman yield?
No, I will not. And we are not talking about Donald Trump jailing his former counsel to prohibit him from publishing a book that the president did not want. The former president literally jailed his enemy. And we're here talking about Twitter. Twitter. And even with Twitter, you cannot find actual evidence of any direct government censorship of any lawful speech. And when I say lawful, I mean non-criminal speech, because plenty of speech is non-criminal.
I'll give you one. Gentleman's time to expire. I'd ask unanimous consent to enter into the record the following email from Clark Humphrey, Executive Office of the Presidency, White House Office, January 23rd, 2021. That's the Biden administration, 4:39 a.m. Hey, folks. This goes to Twitter. Hey, folks. 1 and 2. Use the term Mr. Goldman just used. 1 and 2 flag the below tweet, and I'm wondering if we can get moving on the process for having it removed ASAP.
Boom.
That is.
Could you read the below tweet?
And then if we can keep an eye out for tweets that fall in this same genre, that would be great. This is a tweet on the very issue that Thomas...
Can you just, for the fullness of the record, can you read the, because I've not seen this, can you read the tweet that it's referencing?
I don't have the tweet here with me, but the gentleman's point was, tell us, you said no time did government try to tell Twitter to explicitly remove something. And
no, I said explicitly remove lawful speech. Lawful speech. We're going to conflate. The First Amendment is not absolute.
This is something from Robert Kennedy Jr.
But for the record,
I assume that's
there's a
lawful
point
speech.
of order, Mr. Chair.
Because Robert Kennedy Jr. said it, that's why it's lawful speech.
Also, Mr. Goldman.
All I'm saying is, you said in no time did the government explicitly say to take a tweet down. Here we have it, right here.
Mr.
From the White House. They couldn't even wait 2 days. 2 days into this administration, they were asked Twitter to take something down, and we will get you the underlying tweet.
Thank you.
I recognize the gentlelady from New York.
Will you place it into the record as well, sir?
the underlying tweet?
Robert Kennedy Jr. Is talking about he's talking about Hank Aaron's death after he received the vaccine. That's what the tweet's about. We'll get you a copy. Thank you. I think that's. I would say one thing. That's certainly lawful.
Mr. Chairman, I ask unanimous consent to enter the tweet that you referenced into the record of the committee.
Without objection, we'll enter that into the record along with the statement from the White House, the Biden White House, 2 days into the administration, when they're directly attacking people's First Amendment liberties. With that, I recognize the gentlelady from New York for 5 minutes.
I want to yield to Mr. Johnson.
Thank you. Just to point out quickly that Mr. Goldman is proving himself to be a master of obfuscation. He said the First Amendment applies to government censorship of speech and not private companies. But what we're talking about and what the chairman just illustrated is that what we have here and what your Twitter files show is the federal government has partnered with private companies to censor and silence the speech of American citizens. I yield back to the gentlelady.
I just came from an open hearing with FBI Director Chris Wray, and he said under oath that no one from the FBI communicated with Twitter regarding the Hunter Biden laptop story. Based upon both of your courageous reporting, can you address that?
I mean, we saw, I mean, like I said, we don't know. I mean, so at this point, we just have to take his word on it. But what we saw was a huge amount of FBI communications to Twitter. We saw the former deputy chief of staff, the former general counsel showing up at Twitter right at the critical period. So I find a lot of suspicious activity. I would like to ask him a bunch of questions about that because I find it very suspicious and unresolved.
Mr. Taibbi, do you have comments on that?
We do know that there was a teleporter communication that had 10 documents in it just before the story broke, but we don't know what those documents were, so we can't suppose.
Well, I don't take his word for it. We have lots of examples where it has not been, they have not been accurate from that particular agency when it comes to testifying before Congress. So it is our job in this committee to get to the truth, to shine sunlight and transparency for the American people. I want to ask you both about the Aspen Digital Hack and Dump Working Group, which involved an 11-day scenario in October 2020 that began with the imaginary release of falsified records, that's what they claim, related to Hunter Biden's controversial employment by the Ukrainian energy company Burisma. This was if they knew, because they did know. So I would like your comments, Mr. Schellenberg. These were the files that you did extensive reporting on about how concerning this is and how this is truly the definition of the weaponization against free speech and suppressing accurate reporting.
Yeah, so there's actually two things, and one of them we just discovered recently, which is that there was a Stanford Cyber Policy Institute report, which was in menacing terms telling journalists that they should abandon the Pentagon principle. Again, this is the Pentagon Papers principle. This is the idea that if Daniel Ellsberg brings you materials he's taken from the Pentagon about how the war in Vietnam is going, the New York Times and Washington Post published those. That was considered one of the greatest moments of American journalism. Here you have Stanford Cyber Policy Center saying we should abandon that principle. You should instead make the issue about, frankly, the theories about where it might have come from. Then you had the Aspen workshop, which was attended, by the way, by New York Times, CNN, Washington Post, Wikipedia, Facebook, Twitter, many other journalists, where they basically, you read it, it's like a kind of programming of the journalists that they should not follow this long-standing journalistic principle of taking materials from a hack and leak or any other situation and take them seriously. So, I mean, you read this and it feels like a kind of brainwashing exercise that Aspen students were running against American journalists and social media companies.
Mr. Taibbi, comments?
Yes, I think there were a couple of moments in the Twitter files that really speak to a kind of larger problem. In the first Twitter files, we saw an exchange between Representative Rouhana and Vijay Gad, where he's trying to explain the basics of speech law in America, and she seems completely unaware of what, for instance, New York Times v. Sullivan is. There are other cases like Bartnicki v. Vopper, which legalize the publication of stolen material. That's very important for any journalist to know. I think most of these people are tech executives, and they don't know what the law is around speech and around reporting. And in this case, and in 2016, you were dealing with true material. There is no basis to restrict the publication of true material, no matter who the source is and how you get it. And journalists have always understood that. And this has never been an issue or a controversial issue until very recently.
And by the way, just one quick thing I'll add. That's the exact same strategy of the malinformation, misleading. In other words, they were saying even if the material you think is true, it could lead people to have conclusions that we don't want them to have, and therefore you should change your journalism because of that. So this is we're so far down the slippery slope. You've crashed at that point. I mean, it's a disturbing trend in journalism, in social media, and in the relationship from the intelligence community to these organizations.
How have you been targeted since the publication of the Twitter files?
Generally, time expires. We'll give a quick answer if we can.
I mean, again, I've known journalists who've suffered real brutal harms in my career, so they've said a lot of nasty things about me on Twitter, but it hasn't been so bad, I would say. The FTC thing is the only thing that's legitimately concerning, and that's not really for my sake. It's more because it's a general problem for journalists everywhere.
I've been censored on Facebook since the year 2020 for writing accurate information in an article that went viral. I remain censored. They continue to flag warnings on posts that I write that have nothing to do with the environment. And we now know that one of the U.S. government-funded organizations has put out a report that specifically targets me and presents disinformation about my own position on climate change. And so I've got a lot at stake here.
Yield back.
Mr. Chair, can I ask unanimous consent to enter into the record a letter dated June 25th, 2020, to Mark Zuckerberg from Chad Wolf, the acting Secretary of Homeland Security, in which he asked Facebook to keep Americans safe by taking appropriate action consistent with your terms of service against content that promotes, incites, or assists the commission of eminent illegal activities. Those committed to protecting free exchange of ideas should not turn a blind eye to illegal activity and violence fermenting in your platform. This is after the summer in which Black Lives Matter protests took place.
Objection. Gentlelady from Florida is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you to our witnesses for appearing here today. I know it doesn't feel exactly warm and fuzzy, but believe me, I think what you guys are doing is very important. We're here to discuss the weaponization of government, and I want to follow up on my colleague, Representative Massey's comments on the CDC. Up on the screen, you can see an email from October of 2020. This is from then NIH Director Francis Collins to Dr. Anthony Fauci. It goes on in to say this proposal, talking about the Great Barrington Declaration, is from 3 French epidemiologists who met with the secretary, and it seems to be getting a lot of attention, even a co-signature from a Nobel Prize winner. key line in here that I would like to point out. There needs to be a, quote, quick and devastating published takedown of its premises. I don't see anything like that online yet. Is it underway? Signed, Francis. Now, what I find interesting is if you fast forward into June of 2021, the Biden administration was raging at social media companies. There is communications that we can produce, for the record, that state, we would like you to combat, quote unquote, misinformation. Now, we, thanks to the Twitter files, know that Twitter executives were using the term visibility filtering, and that really to the rest of the American general public was shadow banning, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So all of a sudden, we saw a rash of blacklists created by Twitter at the highest levels that were taking down some of the signatories and creators of this very Barrington Declaration, correct?
I warned you they're going to come after you. They're coming after me first.
So, would you agree that there was a blacklist created in 2021?
Sorry, yes, Jay Bhattacharya, a Stanford professor who I don't think anybody considers a French epidemiologist, was indeed, I'm sorry, I didn't piece it together. He was indeed visibility filtered.
Correct. And so this blacklist that was created that really was used to deplatform, reduce visibility, create lists internally where people couldn't even see their profiles, that was used against doctors and scientists who produced information that was contrary to what the CDC was putting out, despite the fact that we now know that what they were publishing had scientific basis and in fact was valid.
Absolutely, and not only that, but these are secret blacklists. So Professor Bhattacharya had no idea he was on it. I mean, this is East Germany Stasi kind of behavior. That's what this is. And the Great Barrington Declaration, by the way, I was skeptical of at the time, but it actually now looks pretty good in terms of how response to COVID. But even if it was totally wrong, it still deserved. I mean, this is the whole point of the First Amendment: is that I think we all have the experience of you're not right until you're wrong a lot. You know, you actually have to have that debate and that conversation. So by repressing that, we actually stifled, I think, a much broader conversation we could have had about how effectively respond to COVID because they were secretly blacklisting people like Jay Bhattacharya.
And I think to the bigger point that Americans are concerned about when it comes to the weaponization of government, this isn't a Republican or Democrat issue, this is an American issue. You had individuals, millions of Americans, who in many cases were being mandated to take an experimental vaccine, and when those that wanted to consider taking it were trying to make an informed decision, you had opinions that were being silenced because it didn't fit a specific narrative pushed by the Biden administration, correct?
Absolutely correct, and that's why we use the language of disfavored ideas and disfavored people, because it doesn't fall neatly among left and right lines. If there's anything going on here, it tends to be more of a disproportionate blacklisting of more populist voices, or just ideas that we would consider slightly outside of the Overton window, the mainstream opinion at the time, but the Overton window moves, and so the idea that you're just going to narrow the entire what's acceptable on social media to what is mainstream at the time would basically freeze us and not allow the society to progress and for knowledge to grow and for the democracy to function.
With the 14 seconds that I have left, Mr. Taibbi, if you'd like to weigh in on any of this that we have talked about and why this is a direct threat to Americans today, I would appreciate it.
Just quickly, again, we yesterday discovered this email talking about the suppression of people telling their own stories of true vaccine side effects. So these are people who are telling about their own experiences, things that happen to them that are true, and they're being suppressed because what anti-disinformation does is the opposite of what the press does. They are aiming for what the narrative is, and they already know in advance what they're looking for. Whereas a journalist goes into a story, does not know what the truth is. We often find that the thing we expect to find turns out to be completely different. They know in advance what they're looking for, and that's why this is so dangerous.
My time has expired. I yield back. Thank you too.
The gentlelady yields back. I want to thank our witnesses for being here today, and I think maybe if we can get this right and stop this, and what legislation, appropriate, whatever it takes, we can stop this. I think in the future, people will look back and look at your courage as people in journalism, in the press, to come here with what you've been facing, what you've had to endure, and now with the idea that the FTC is coming after you. That's something I think is pretty darn important and certainly noteworthy. So we appreciate you sitting here for 2.5 hours, taking the questions you did, but giving.
So what little Big Head said is completely erased by what Jim Jordan just said. You know, and he said it. It's unbelievable. This Republican. He said it beautifully. And he's defending journalism beautifully. He could do one step further and defend Julian Assange next. Right? What do you guys think? If you agree with that sentiment, please go to Twitter at Nays Garden and go share my pinned tweet. Send it back to at Jim Jordan if you want. You know, I'll make it easy for you. It's right there. It's my pinned tweet, so feel free. 232.19. Let's go back to here. I just want to hear this one more time.
And what legislation, appropriation, whatever it takes, we can stop this. I think in the future, people will look back and look at your courage as people in journalism, in the press, to come here with what you've been facing, what you've had to endure, and now
and only have to endure people like Little Big Head at Humanist Report, you know, smearing and bashing them over things that didn't even make sense. Yeah, Jim, you make a good point.
That the FTC is coming after you. That's something that I think is
little
pretty darn
Mikey is
important
no help
and
at all.
Certainly noteworthy. So we appreciate you sitting here for
what a cuck.
2.5 hours, taking the questions you did, but giving so much valuable information to this committee, who is certainly on our side, committed to protecting the First Amendment and people's right to speak. So that concludes today's hearing. Again, we thank you both for being here. Without objection, all members will have 5 legislative days to submit additional written questions for the witnesses or additional materials for the record. Without
Okay, so you guys, I'm so proud of you that toughed this out. I know it wasn't easy, but I want you to know something. I wouldn't do to you what I hadn't already done to myself, and I literally already sat through this once today. So I sat through 5 hours of testimony. You sat through 2.5. You know, we sped it up. So the whole show's just at 2.5 hours right now. I'm really proud of you guys. All of you that are still here, man. Thank you for hanging out and watching. And there it is, man. Matt Taibbi's a hero. Schellenberger's a hero. The Democrats are showing their asses. And Jim Jordan is doing a great job of chairing that board. So, keep going, Jim. Let's do Julian Assange next. Okay? Let's do Julian Assange next. Anybody got anything to say in the chat? Five over there on Rumble, really? Oh, look at that. We got a nice crowd. Okay, so we'll stick around. We won't shut it down. Right on. What is that? Oh, no thank you. Psst. No thanks. It'd be so funny if somebody was getting the same notifications as me as they're like, Nay, did you just say blah, blah, blah about so-and-so? I'd be like, yeah, bro, you following them too? With notifications on? That's funny. Because notifications, guys, you might not realize this, but a lot of times, notifications run at almost the same time, bro. Almost every phone pings at the exact same time. It's within, sometimes it's within milliseconds of each other. Around the world. It's amazing. The internet is an amazing thing. And for those of you who doubt that, look no further than when you're playing a video game with somebody on the other side of the planet and your game ping to them is 0.31 milliseconds. It's 0.31 of a second to get around the world to somebody else. Then you realize how those notifications go out all in the same second, you know? Harley go free, Harley go free, Harley. He says not interested. It's beautiful outside. Oh my goodness gracious, the wind feels so nice out there. It rained yesterday. I want to go look at the creek and see how it's responded to the rain. You know? It's going to be fun. You guys have anything to say in the chats at all? Anything? People are leaving. Don't leave. I was gonna, but no one's talking. I was going to say I could refresh the chat, but I guess I could check over on the YouTube channel. See if anybody said anything over there. Nope. Josh G said cheers. Josh G said cheers. That was a while back. Okay. You're all very good, you. There's a lot of you here. I'm just surprised I can't get a single person to say a single word in the chat. One person say anything in my chat. YouTube, Facebook, Big Ben, Parliament, Mueller, Fry. Big Ben. There's Billy.
Valentine. Sorry, I was cooking bacon.
Thank you, Billy, for saving the show. Yes, indeed. I was wondering what was going to happen. I was like, yeah, man, it's really nice outside. It's really, don't let your bacon burn. Oh, look at that hawk out there. So pretty, man. Dude, how did he see a mole
Valentine.
from that far away? Jeez Louise.
It's only gonna be 60 here today. Caleb Sliger. Hey, Nay, still here, just cleaning pipes.
Yo, Caleb. How the hell did that hawk see a freaking mole from that far away? But you know what? He didn't find the mole. He didn't pull him out of the ground. He gave up. Man, I'd love to train that hawk to land on my fucking wrist. It'd be so badass. I wonder how tore up you'd get from a small hawk, you know, without having one of them leather gloves. I bet you'd fucking bleed to death. I bet you'd bleed out, bro. Probably go right in your fucking wrist and just rip you open. Oh, fuck. Yeah, I better get the gloves, even for a small hawk. Because I had a parrot, you know. It wasn't like that, though. They're not birds of prey. They got different kinds of talons, man. Well, one's got feet, the other one's got talons. That's right. That right there should tell you. Man, Orphan
Monkey
Monkey,
one.
I am just...
What's up, man?
I'm really... Orphan
Good
Monkey,
morning.
you've been here watching?
Got my coffee.
I didn't know.
Cool show so far.
I'm so glad you guys were watching. I was worried, man.
Orphan Monkey 1. Not that they go bad. LOL. Orphan Monkey 1. Been watching.
I gotta follow Jim Jordan for a while. It sucks, but I tweeted at him. That was very entertaining. It was 70 degrees this morning when I took the dog out for a walk without my shoes on. I did not see this coming. Not see. It's funny. We're so funny on Twitter. I'm like, fuck them. To be poor and not worried about finances. Damn, they got that library cleaned up, bro. Look at what Unholy did. He's really come quite a ways with that building. Way to go, bro. America, pay attention. Yeah, America should pay attention, you know?
Valentine. I never finished, the tree got too thick and bitchy. Now I have what resembles a giant 20-foot toad in my yard.
You could make it into a canoe.
Caleb Sliger. Fixing to smoke down. Cheers, guys.
You guys, I got something to say about this. Watch this.
Hey, it's Secretary Pete here, and if you're planning to take an airline trip anytime soon, you're going to want to know about this. We have been hard at work to make sure that airlines commit to treating passengers better in situations where there's a delay or a cancellation under the airline's control. Now, as recently as a year ago, only 1 out of the top 10 airlines guaranteed rebooking in this situation, and none of them guaranteed things like meals, hotels, or ground transportation for stranded passengers. But we have been hard at work pressing the airlines to commit to more, and thanks to the efforts of this department, things have changed. As a matter of fact, today, all 10 out of the top 10 airlines guarantee that free rebooking and a meal for passengers in this situation, and 9 out of the top 10 airlines...
Dude, how old is this? Because if this is new, bro, is this what he's been doing? Is this why our railways are destroying this country? You guys heard about Alabama derailment? It's not stopping. How old is this? Dude! Oh my God, he put this up 23 hours ago?
Ben Deo. He spent a lot of time on that chart.
Dude, he put that up 20, he just put it up. I thought that was a joke from like a while back. Oh my God. This is what he's talking about while trains are freaking crashing left and right in this country. Oh my God. Wow. Wow. That is he's like, we've got trains crashing around the country, and he's doing a freaking book report on freaking getting a meal before you get on a plane. Wow. And you guys notice what this is, too.
It's Secretary Pete here, and if you're planning to take an airline trip anytime soon,
watch.
You're going to want
Caleb
to know
Sliger.
Watch this.
We have been hard at work
Jesus
to make
H.
sure that
Christ.
airlines commit to treating passengers better
What?
in situations where there's a delay or a cancellation under the airline's control.
Did you hear that? In situations where there's a delay or cancellation, he's not fixing the problem. Oh, he's got this whole chart of Band-Aids, though, that aren't going to do anything. Huh. Funny, isn't it? That is why you watch this show. Because you're going to get the real take right here. I don't care, Democrat, Republican, Independent, Libertarian, you call yourself whatever you want to call yourself. I'm going to call you out on your bullshit. Nobody hides. Nobody hides in the garden. All will be revealed.
Valentine. Jesus has a middle name. What is it? Herbert?
Let the sun
Herman?
be down upon your
Hank?
face. dun-dun-dun. Stars reveal my dreams. Dun-dun-dun, dun-dun-dun, dun-dun-dun. I am a traveler of both time and space. Dun-dun-dun, dun-dun-dun, dun-dun-dun. All will be revealed. Mama, mama. I don't know the song. Ain't no denying, ain't no denying. Ooh, yeah! What's he say right there? It's H. Yes, it's
Valentine.
It's
Jesus' middle name should be Todd.
Todd. Mutton, chops, or goatee? Todd. Mutton chops it is. So, wow, Pete is doing a thing on, trying to plug holes in transportation that's not arriving on time when what he needs to be focused on is derailments all over the country. He's there when he should be over in Alabama right now.
Not getting notifications even though I'm subbed. I checked everything.
Holly.
Dad.
Holly, will you do me a favor? Will you follow at
Billy Valentine.
Follow at Nate's Garden Show.
Bread or fish?
On Twitter.
Guard, filter the water floor.
Bread or fish? Fruit or mint? Spearmint or fruit? Holly, please follow on Twitter. Please follow at Nate's Garden Show and sign up for notifications from that Twitter account. Turn your notifications on for Twitter. I mean, if you could do that.
Hey, Horn. Oh, Nate. Thanks for making me a mod.
You're welcome.
Billy Valentine. Hookers or my mom? Holly Horn. Okay, I will.
Okay. Hookers. Hey man, it was International Women's Day a few days ago. So to celebrate, I went out and I got a hooker, and I made sure to tip her really well. Oh, boom! Celebrating women. No, bad decision. My bad. Hey, I'll take it back. It's a good one. Celebrate International Women's Day. Hey, did you hear what I said there? I said, it is celebrating International Women's Day. I got a hooker to celebrate. I got a hooker to celebrate International Women's Day. It's fucking funny. In order to celebrate International Women's Day, I said, what can I do to support my fellow woman? I got a hooker. Oh, boom. Why are the funny ones so bad? Oh my god. Everyone's all like Crypto's dropping more. Harmony's dropping right now. Waiting for some money to come in just to see, because I don't know how much money. I'm getting some money, supposedly. It's not going to be till Monday, I guess. And I don't know how much it is, so I'm not spending any money. But, man, I'm looking at Harmony, and it's literally at 1.5 cents right now. And I want it so bad, man, because I know when it hits 3 cents, I double my money. 3-cent harmony doubling. Doubling. And we've seen 3-cent harmony on here already, so we know it's possible. We got up to 3 cents, right? Or if not, it was very close. It was like 2.9 something.
Horn. Nay, I'm already following at Nay's Garden Show.
Are you getting notifications from it? It should be notifying you. Follow Holly. You see my real names there on that channel, Ben Shader. Go to Facebook and follow all 6 of my Ben Shader channels. Go on YouTube, follow all 6 of the Nate's Garden channels. Go to YouTube, follow, because I always get my notifications for all the other YouTube channels on my phone. So make sure to go to YouTube and follow all the Nate's Garden channels that are broadcasting the show. They're easy to find.
Horn. Let me check.
If you type in Nate's Garden right now, all the live shows will pop up, like first. If you just scroll through real quick, you'll see all the channels that'll say that I'm live. Follow them, turn notifications on for all 6 of them. Oh my God. Jane Fonda suggested murdering Republican politicians on The View. Oh my God. Now this is something that, you would expect one of these women to say at home around the kitchen table, just shooting the shit with their family or whatever. But it's like...
Horn. I saw that.
It's like she's older and she forgot she's on freaking national television or something. I don't know what's going on here.
We have experienced many decades now of having agency over our body, of being able to determine when and how many children to have. We know what that feels like. We know what that's done for our lives. We're not going back. I don't care what the laws are. We're not going back.
You can feel it going. You can feel her. They're going to drive her right into it.
That's Jane speaking, and she probably will get a Nobel Prize.
But it's the truth.
Very soon.
It is the truth. But we're not going to do it.
Besides marching and protesting, what else do you suggest?
Well,
it doesn't happen overnight. It's not a miraculous. What did you say?
Murder.
She's kidding. Wait a second. She's just kidding.
Don't say that. That's
you don't know. They'll pick up on that and just run
that's
with
the
it.
worst.
She's just kidding.
Well, let me talk to you about. Let's move on and talk about Jane's activism, which is legendary.
See, now that could inspire someone to do something. Now that's freaking hate speech. It needs to be called out hate speech. It needs to be dealt with. Wow, she's guilty of hate speech, man. You can't say that. You can't say that on TV like that, man. That's why they penalize hate speech. Something's going to happen to her. They're going to cancel her. She's going to get prosecuted. Something. I have a feeling she might get sued. Republicans might bring her out for a hearing, just like they just did to Matt Taibbi.
Were we just watching The View? I'm repressing that memory right away.
Bro, I'm sorry we had to watch it. I mean, it was, you're just like, you can't say that, man. I understand how you feel, but you can't use that kind of language.
Jerry Lawton.
And she should be held
Good morning,
to the
Nick.
same standard on television and in Hollywood that I'm held to on my podcasts. And my standard is, I can't talk like that. So, I get punished if and when I do. Hey, you... Oh, shit. No. Hey. Stop it. No. Stop it. Come here.
Valentine. Repress what? What happened?
Stop it. You stop it. No, no, no. Come here. Come here. Come here. Come on. Come here. All right, get in here. No, no, go on. Get out of here. Okay, now that lizard, he jumped up in here, had a lizard in his mouth, right? He didn't kill it. It's a big one. So I made him release it, and now I'm looking at it, and it's moved over to, it's behind him, and he doesn't know where it is now because it blends right in. It's changing its color. It blends right in with the freaking wood chips, and Harley has stopped looking for it, but it's 6 inches away from his tail. So I just want to make sure the lizard gets away because the lizard's fine. He can run just fine. He's got all 4 of his legs. He just lost his tail, which is normal, but there's no holes in him, and he seems fine. Harley was going to bring him inside here and release him, catch and release. That's what he does, and then he's going to play with it for 5 minutes until he kills it. This is my technique to try to get him to come in the house. Watch this. Look at this. How predictable is this cat? Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Get in here. Get in here. We saved a lizard today. That's fun to watch. That's fun to watch, isn't it? I saved the lizard's life. That lizard's going to remember me. You remember me, son. That's right. Go eat some ants. Forget about it. Forget about it. Forget about it. Yeah, we're not repressed what? All right, so we have to save this as a show story. Yeah, let's save that. And
Valentine. This is my new pro-cannabis speech. People just repeat the news when they share opinions on cannabis. They say it clogs the lungs, depletes motivation, and kills brain cells, but you know what? What? Did I say what, or did you ask me what?
Matt Taibbi's trending. I love it. Oh, you're trending, buddy. Haircuts are fucking awful by Matt Taibbi. Yeah.
Caleb Sliger. Nay is for the lizards.
I am for the lizards. It's those interdimensional shape-shifting reptilian aliens are the ones that you have to look out for because they are literally reading the thoughts out of your brain. Wow, he is the man, dude. Matt Taibbi is everywhere. He's in the title of my video? Yeah, right? No, he's not. That's too bad. Because that's really who the video is about. Oops. I should have been more clever. I kind of screwed up. Wow, even Majority Report. Wow, what a little bitch. Wow, it's so funny how lines have never been clearer. Fucking goddamn clown show. We are covering this
Martin.
live now.
Weekend baked cheers, guys. Rip some dabs.
Wow. What a freaking clown show, dude. This is
So
becoming,
Matt Taibbi
this is such a
in
clown
front
show.
of Congress today. He's testifying in the Twitter files sham hearing about right-wing bias in social media companies, which was within 5 minutes dispelled by Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's line of questioning a few weeks ago.
Oh, yeah. AOC dispelled it. I'm so sure. I haven't seen that, but, you know, it's got me a little curious how she dispelled all the evidence that was produced in that freaking hearing, man.
Where she revealed, when speaking to some of the employees at Twitter at the time, that Twitter modified its policy in order to not suspend Donald Trump, changed the rules because he was in violation of it so that he could stay on. And did the same for the hate account Libs of TikTok. So that basically disproved the entire
doesn't disprove
Republican
anything.
Party's
Wow,
thesis.
she's an idiot. She doesn't know how to think normally, does she? She literally thinks that because Twitter did a couple things, that all the other evidence that Matt came up with and Schellenberger came up with is from Elon Musk is non-existent. What a level of delusion that you must have to lie to yourself in order to wake up in the morning and show up for the Sam Cedar show. You must be sucking that dick. That's all I have to say. That must be the only way this girl could show up to that show every day.
On this front.
The two other
But
guys
don't
very
worry,
like
the
you. What
hearings will
hell
still
did you
continue
just
with the
say?
help of once venerated reporter Matt Taibbi, who now is a PR person for Elon Musk and Twitter. This is Matt Taibbi's characterization of his press releases on behalf of Twitter that he calls reporting.
Now remember, AOC said that Twitter did two bad things. So, you know, they haven't been, you know, there's a portal that all the agencies were sending requests. Hey, please silence this account. Please silence that account. Shadow ban this group. Get rid of this group. And because Twitter did two things with Trump or whatever, that we can't look at all the other evidence. Well, it's kind of weird, AOC. It's almost like you're pulling a Tucker Carlson. Right? Oh, Tucker Carlson's like, yeah, look at all this evidence over here. So the other evidence doesn't count, Tucker? Is that what you're saying? Wow, AOC pulled a Tucker Carlson. I mean, it's kind of weird. I haven't seen it yet, but based on just what Dipshit just said, I'm coming up with new terms here. AOC pulled a Tucker. That's great, man.
Gentlemen, let me start with Mr. Taibbi.
seen
You have a
this.
long, award-winning journalist career. You've just highlighted here decades of experience.
We saw how good they did in this. We just watched the whole thing, right?
Important issions of our
So
time.
they're going to try to
Where do
they're going
you
to try to
rate your
spin
reporting
us
on the
now.
Twitter files
For
among
how
your whole
long?
body of work throughout your
24
career? How
minutes of
serious is
spin.
this?
Oh.
Well, first of all, Mr. Congressman, thank you for the question. I would say, you know, I spent 10 years covering the aftermath of the 2008 financial crisis. That was obviously a very serious issue, but this Twitter file story and what we're looking at now and what we're investigating now, I don't think there's any comparison. This is by far the most serious thing that I've ever looked at, and it's certainly the most grave story that I've ever worked on personally.
Well, I think that's an interesting tactic because that kind of undercuts.
Okay, so you're going to go over a point over a personal opinion from him, and you're going to smear him based on his own opinion about his own career. Oh, okay. I wonder where this is going.
His own past work, right? Which I guess doesn't really matter to him at
He
this
doesn't
point
give a shit.
since he's cashing in.
Yeah,
But I mean,
suppose anyway.
how much wealth was lost?
Are you guys cashing in on your reporting? Okay, shut the fuck up, you little hypocrites. Let's keep going.
For households like $8, $9, $10 trillion.
Almost 10 million people lost their homes.
Unemployment.
It's got nothing to do with what we're talking about. Right. Once again, straw manning. Well, I can do this all day. It's almost like I'm good at this, isn't it, folks? It's like I should do this for a living. I should get paid to do this. You know, I should get paid to debunk people like this. Huh.
10%.
1 in 5 people lost their jobs.
Up, I should say.
And I mean, look, this is not, to be honest, like, I'm not surprised Taibbi has this perspective, because if you look at it from his perspective, the financial crisis was good for him. He got this great reputation that Republican Congress people can cite about how great of a journalist he is. He made a lot of bones out of that as the gonzo journalist. And I read all that stuff too. I don't remember much of it. It doesn't stick with me. I mean, he called...
You know what sucked with the financial crisis? We all lost money and it sucked. But you know what's worse? The government controlling our speech on social media. That's worse. So Matt Taibbi makes a great point, and what they're saying is in Matt's opinion, that should have been more have more weight than what he was reporting on what was coming from Elon Musk.
Goldman Sachs, the vampire squid, I guess that was useful. I will say, like, I'm troubled, like, looking back on it, and I would like to get a reassessment of his work on this by somebody who's not a capitalist, because he sums it up August 5th, 2013 on Twitter. My whole argument against modern Wall Street has been that it's anti-capitalist, perverted by incestuous ties to the state. Sounds like libertarian. And then he said, April 11, 2016, I don't know many people who would describe what's gone on with these too big to fail banks since 2008 as capitalism. So, like, it's not a surprise from his perspective, because, like I said, this whole reputation was made as all these people being thrown out of their homes. And him being a child of wealth, he has no sort of ties to that. And also, the type of people that are paying him now, Elon Musk, did really well from the government response to the financial crisis, which was to flood the zone with cash. Elon not only is a member of this Silicon Valley type crew that's been benefiting and, hauling out society thanks to low interest rates, but also Elon got a low interest, like $3 billion loan from good old Barack Obama, incestuous ties to the state. It's not surprising to me that Taibbi doesn't actually have any connection to what happened in the financial.
So did you just say that Elon Musk was doing business with Barack Obama, so he's doing business with the Democrats as well as the Republicans? Oh, okay, that proves nothing. In fact, it goes against your narrative that this is all funded by Republicans and Arabs. Oh, okay.
Crisis, because his life got a lot better.
Yeah, and I just want to remind everybody about what was found in the Twitter files.
They're idiots, huh?
The Biden campaign, the big bombshell, asked Twitter to take down links to nude photos stolen from Hunter Biden's laptop.
Yeah, I mean, that's the original one. There's the subsequent stuff about, like, the CDC and, like, guidance about...
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Oh, she don't like that.
That should be transparent.
Oh, she don't like that, because she only wanted to say one thing. You see how fucked up and pissed off she is right now? She's like, I only want to say this one thing. Oh, you mean there was a whole bunch of shit that they were trying to take down? Look at her face. This is worth going back. She thought she was just so freaking smart, and she got taken down by her own freaking dude.
I just want to remind everybody about what was
found. ING show.
Thank you, Caleb. I love you. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you. Make sure you subscribe to all my channels and turn on notifications so you don't miss one.
Found in the Twitter files.
And leave me a thumbs up, too.
The Biden campaign, the big bombshell, asked Twitter to take down links to nude photos stolen from Hunter Biden's laptop.
Yeah, I mean, that's the original one. There's the subsequent stuff about...
the bombshell. But, can we just listen to but a few times? Billy, can we listen to but a few times? But...
Like, the CDC and, like, guidance. The subsequent stuff about... And stuff about, like, the CD... And stuff about, like... One. There's the subsequent stuff about one. There's the subsequent stuff about, like, 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 the subsequent stuff about, the subsequent stuff about, the subsequent stuff about, the subsequent stuff about, like, the subsequent stuff about, and stuff about, like, the CDC and, like, guidance about one. There's the subsequent stuff about, like, one. There's
stolen to nude photos stolen from Hunter Biden's laptop.
His life got a lot better.
Yeah, and I just want to remind everybody about what was found in the Twitter files.
I just want to remind everyone what was found in the Twitter files. The Biden administration has to have some nudes removed. That was the big bombshell. And he's like, yeah, and there was also, she's like, but.
The Biden campaign, the big bombshell, asked Twitter to take down links to nude photos stolen from Hunter Biden's laptop.
Yeah, I mean, that's the original one. There's the subsequent stuff about, like, the CDC and, like, guidance about...
Right.
Which, like, I honestly, like, I think that should be transparent.
Look at her putting her hand up, like, stop talking.
Like, millions of people being thrown out of their fucking houses.
But let's just list them, though. That thing, the CDC stuff,
that's
he also said that the Trump administration, when they were in the White House, was in contact with Twitter mods, getting stuff taken down, which he did not reveal. You're muted, Binder. Yeah, I can't hear you. There you go.
My bad. There we go. Yeah, he didn't go. He mentioned in the first one, like, oh yeah, there's in the information I got, there's requests from both sides, Democrats and Republicans, and then he proceeds to, and in all the subsequent other Twitter files, whether it was Matt Taibbi's subsequent Twitter files or the other journalists that they've gotten to do this, they never ever go into what those Republican takedown requests are. And we should also put an asterisk on the whole entire thing, because the entirety of the Twitter files is basically requests, as in, hey, we came across this. We think, and this is for Democrats and Republicans, we think this goes against Twitter's policies, but you need to be the judge of that. We're just sending this over to you to to report it. And we want you to take a look at this. And so, yes, being that it's from Congress people, they would expedite the check of this material, and then they would decide whether it went against their policies or not. From what I've seen so far, the Twitter files has actually shown that the old Twitter regime, if you want to call it, was actually more competent than a lot of people thought in terms of how they really struggled over how to deal with some of these edge cases on their policies. There were internal debates between various executives in the company from all sorts of different departments showing just how serious they took this issue.
And when it did fall, when a question of a right-winger like Trump came up who was in violation of those policies, it's been shown that they made exceptions to keep him on the platform, the exact opposite of the conceit that the Republicans have in this instance.
From an airport for drinking while
Right.
packing containers / parachutes in
one by one. It's like the new
1999.
photos and that first one. That's the big reveal, right? Like that was the biggest one, period. And you go with the big story, right? You take the time to investigate this stuff, and you open up with the big story. I mean, this is my honest take of this. Matt Taibbi is dying for his Edward Snowden, like Glenn Greenwald has. And no matter what Glenn Greenwald has become, and no matter what he does, he'll always have the Ed Snowden story, the NSA story. You can't take that away from him, no matter whether you like him or not. It's just the facts. Taibbi never got that type of story. Like Matt just mentioned, he did great work. He got awards, but there's no defining story of Matt Taibbi's career. Right. And he is begging. He's trying to make this it because he sees the opportunity there. And there certainly is a financial opportunity there.
Can you believe the character assassination that these three little cunts are doing on him? It's like, dude, he's a reporter. It's how he makes money. Are you fucking kidding me? He has a Substack. He charges for it. People pay him money for his reporting because he does excellent reporting, unlike the three of you cunts.
He's got the musk sycophants and the right-wingers eating up this shit and certainly growing his Substack and his Twitter following. The guy's probably raking in the cash now, but it's still not that defining. No matter how hard he tries, it will not be that defining Ed Snowden story that is to what Glenn Greenwald is. But Taibbi does not have it.
And he would, but he has to act like this is it. And not only because of like his own desire, but also like he's telling Elon Musk, his boss, in this respect that it is. And I also think it's revealing if you listen to Taibbi closely. He says, after the but, that was pretty bad, but what we are investigating now, he puts it in like it's a continued process, as if there's like more to come out. And we know, like just what Binder said, like you would have started with the most interesting thing if you did, and it was that Hunter Biden shit.
Well, interesting to his audience. I mean, the more interesting thing to me is how the person in government.
The more interesting to me is how you all think you're the judge of what the most bombshell thing release of information was out of that. It seems like none of you guys get it.
At that time, the Trump administration, like the Biden campaign was a campaign at that point.
The bombshell, by the way, was that there was a portal where all of these agencies could control social media accounts from. That's the bombshell, you fucking stupid cunt. Fuck you.
Was in office. They were that's actually government
campaign lobbies platform. Wow.
And also lobbies to get revenge porn of his troubled son taken down. Like, let's be real, that a lot of they could have pursued legal action on this front. Honestly, I don't think it was in Biden's best political interest to do so, but this constitutes revenge porn in a variety of states, okay? So Twitter accommodating him and taking that down is not a scandal whatsoever. What is a scandal? Potentially, I don't even know. But I would like to know if Taibbi was a real reporter in this way, was the government's request to Twitter, the person in power, the Trump administration. That has still not been revealed, selectively so.
Well, Angus King did want Matt Christman suspended for saying that he has a name that sounds like a steakhouse.
It's amazing. All right, Brandon, go ahead.
No, I mean, I stopped paying attention to the Twitter files a while ago because they were always dropped like on Friday night or Saturday night, like which really shows the opinion of the average Twitter file enthusiast to drop them on such a busy night for most people. But I think they rely on people just not wanting to be honest with themselves. And I know the company is going to be honest about what social media companies do. You can strip away all of the politics from it. You can strip away a lot of the stuff from it. It's like, social media platforms give preferential treatment to their influencers.
Hey man, what the fuck are you talking about? Get to the point.
Kim Kardashian can do whatever she wants, except maybe decapitate somebody on Instagram, and they're not going to delete her account because advertisers, that brings value to the platform. And it seems like a lot of what the Twitter files is, and also I think this is supported by Elon Musk just simply running this business to the ground with his changes. It's people who don't really understand what social media companies are. It's people who maybe have grown up on social media companies, people who run their businesses, their semi-legitimate businesses on these companies, and don't want to come to terms with the fact that these companies can shut off your access to them with a light switch, and you can't really do anything about it. And they might do that if you don't bring value to their company. And they're not a free speech platform. If you try to make them a free speech platform like Elon Musk said he wanted to do, you find yourself, coming up to terms with the fact that many different countries don't have these types of laws, and you're operating internationally, so you can free speech.
That dude's got the ugly mustache award. Oh my God.
One place is
stop, man. Move that microphone over a few inches so we don't have to see that ugly mustache.
take from another country, and there's no hierarchy of those laws. If you're a business, you just have to take them all into consideration. And
Also, companies in those free speech companies, companies in those free speech countries will take their money elsewhere because they don't want to see their brand name, their ads next to, I don't know, say Nick Fuentes' latest white supremacist screed when he's promoting Kanye 2024.
You know, I understand what people get at when they want to like pretend that Twitter is a free speech platform, you know, even when it's not like about money, when it's about like, you know, psychological stuff, like, but ultimately it's, as a leftist, I don't find it very helpful to pretend like private companies can be held to the same values that public companies can without like really severe curtailments on like by the government on what they do, which no one in this situation is advocating for. They just want to pretend that Elon Musk is able to provide a free speech place. But again, just from the most basic level of how social media platforms work, if there's an algorithm that chooses what to display to people, I would argue that's curation and therefore it can't be a free speech platform because you're promoting things. You're actively choosing what to promote based on certain metrics that you've unilaterally decided. And so, I get it. I think this conversation is hard to have because it's been entirely hijacked by content creators who think free speech
because
again,
you have
freedom
no
to promote my own
points to
stuff
make on
without
what
any
the
interference
actual
from the platform that I have
subject
equity
matter
or say in.
is.
But that's not a
At
legal
what
standard
point
that
are you
anyone
going to
can
talk about
possibly
the
support.
journalists?
It's, you know, if Elon Musk wants to pretend like his site is for that, then it's, I mean, we see what that does. You know, it's advertiser-based revenue, subscription-based revenue model that won't work for this kind of site, and it's just going to go to the ground. And maybe, and there are, again, free speech sites that are formed. You can talk about whatever you want, but you have a harder time promoting your brand to thousands of people on them for the reason because that you can promote whatever you want.
and that exact construction is why, in fact, Twitter had a disincentive to ban Trump and why they changed their policies during the time period to allow him to continue to be on, because for a long period of time, he was synonymous with that social media platform. That was how he got his message out there, and he was the president of the damn United States. Like, that was actually quite good for them.
There's an article about Facebook, and so much of this is like the internal politics is genuinely interesting. And when Trump said during the George Floyd protests, he tweeted out, wrote on Facebook rather, when the looting starts, the shooting starts. And there's a lot of people that wanted to get that removed because it was seen as a provocation towards violence. And I think absolutely it was, right? Like, if you're a police officer, right? Like, do you trust America's police departments to not see that and be like, okay, we're gonna take it easy tonight? Like, and then what would have happened if they would have done something?
1499 Harmony, guys.
Right? Like that stuff. That sort of thing is all game to like people like Greenwald and Taibbi. I don't know if Taibbi's commenting on it. I know he removed the Garner book from his bio on Twitter, but Greenwald's been feeding into this thing about how like the establishment liked the protests and they fed into him, and like I just think it's really dangerous.
Well, let's pull up that other clip really quickly because that feeds into what we're talking about here. But as Bradley's doing that, go ahead, Brandon.
Well, I was just going to say, you know, they don't think the solution is that you take that down. They think that the solution is that you only monetize it to the brands that want to advertise on that content. So you say, oh yeah, you know, some advertisers might have an issue with that, you know, shooting and looting, but you know, we show it to like a gun brand or some kind of like arms manufacturer, and they might want to, you know, promote that. But they don't, you know, again, that works for a podcast where you're reading one ad or two ads before the show. It doesn't work for a platform like Facebook or Twitter that has to take into larger, you know, concerns about ad revenue, not just like, can we get one ad on one particular post? And, you know, you feel like silly having to say it, but this is so much more about like people's ability to build their brands on this site than it is about their ability to say what they quote unquote want, that it's just become one-to-one.
Yeah, and this is why this is branding here, because this clip pairs with it, right? Here he is on Bad Faith speaking about national security state and them targeting the right more than the left. When that's what this reminded me of it when Matt said when the looting starts.
It's hard not to say shark.
I know. But like during that time period, right? We're now getting all of this reporting. We had Trevor Aronson on this program last week, whose podcast Alphabet Boys everyone should check out. How we are getting more and more information about how the FBI, other law enforcement agencies, the deep state, as they call it, were provoking violence, attempting through informants and things like that, trying to stoke violence in Black Lives Matter protests. And this is a through line of things like the FBI historically, of the deep state, of the national security state, targeting the left. And if you want to have some sort of focus on that in a hearing, which is what now Taibbi is a part of, if it's not centrally focused on how these established national security or organizations like the FBI are targeting the left, you are doing so as a political project because it's both ahistorical and doesn't fit into actually what's happening in the country right now. But just so you know, and if it's especially clear for you now, who Taibbi is speaking to at this point and who he's working for, this is his characterization of who law enforcement and the deep state types target.
What, man? Did you guys catch what that bubblehead just said? If you're trying to pay attention to what Bubblehead just said, I got news for you. It didn't make any sense at all. Let's hear what Matt has to say.
Taibbi's eye roll.
When I see, you know, conservative sites talking about this. Yeah, sometimes it's like the FBI is doing this and that and the other, but oftentimes there's this far-ranging anti-right-wing bias, which I don't have a problem with, except for I think that the story is there is an establishment bias against more fringe populist parts that include, yes, the right, but also the left. It's a nuanced point, but I think that it's important.
But the reason you're seeing more of this against the right than the left is that the left is toothless and no threat to anybody, whereas the right is actually scary to the national security establishment because of Brexit, because of Trump, and because of other things.
If that's true, Matt, why is it that 85% of all FBI action, FBI activity, has been historically focused on the left?
Good question.
I'm not talking about the right now contemporary. Yes.
What about in the last 20? What about in the last 5 years? Since Trump. I mean, over history, yeah, but you want to talk about who supported slavery then? Huh? Oh. It's all about your time frame, isn't it? It's an amazing thing to see how someone will stretch out a time frame in order to try to make a point that doesn't make any sense based on today's world, And she's an idiot. So let's see how Matt handles this.
Looking at 1970, I'm looking at 2015 on.
Oh, boom. I'm not looking at 1970, you idiot. I had no idea where he was going to go with that. He went right where I went with it. What do you know? I'm as smart as Matt Taibbi. What do you know? I love it. I hope you guys love it too. Share it on social media. Get some more people here.
Well,
there you go. Aside, but he looks so much, Matt Taibbi looks like Nicholas Hoult to me, the actor from a lot of stuff. Like he's gonna be in Renfield with Nicolas Cage soon. But just like the profile.
I don't know how they're all sitting there with those little silly little grins on their face, like they just own Matt Taibbi or something. Isn't that weird?
Probably.
You mean him in Mad Max or him in real life? Because I don't know. I mean, that's a very nice compliment there, Brandon. But
I don't know. I mean, if you're into Nicholas Hoult, I don't necessarily understand that. I think he's.
I get the Hoult comp sometimes too, actually.
Oh well, there you go. But anyway,
I'm the good Hoult.
It's so funny how the two through lines that the right is right now currently trying to push, they directly contradict each other. You have this Taibbi thing where the authorities are after the right because they're so dangerous. And then you got Tucker Carlson for the past week showing the police at the Capitol building walking the QAnon shaman and the other Capitol rioters into the Capitol building. And they're trying to portray that as, oh, look, we told you that they were just peaceful, of course, not showing where they're attacking other people and attacking some of the police who were not helpful to them. But at the same time, like we've been saying that, we know that there are supporters of these various far-right ideologies, these supporters of Trump, these supporters of those very people who showed up at the Capitol building, who work for the Capitol Police, for police departments all across the country, work for various different agencies. I'm sure there are, without it, I mean, the Secret Service, we know for a fact, buddy with Trump and co. The idea that these two things can be happening concurrently just don't add up. It's just bullshit that like the right doesn't have friends in very high places.
We also know that, like you said, the deep state is not primarily targeting right-wingers, not in the past and not currently. But if they were, we know it's because statistically right-wing terrorism is the largest form of terrorism in the United States. Far-right Christian terrorism, anti-abortion terrorism, these things are just like measured fact. The multiple of our agencies, although we know that they've been taken over by various untoward influences, have pointed out for decades that the biggest threat to American national security domestically is the existence of right-wing terrorist movements. But it's just like Matt said, these terrorist movements for a long time, I know we don't have to look into the past, but we know that as part of their training of other members of fringe right groups, they encourage them to join the police. They encourage them to join Secret Service. They encourage them to join the army in order to get training and access to resources that they find beneficial for their militia. It's the left who doesn't encourage, obviously, discourages people from influencing or like infiltrating these organizations, because we know that these organizations are way more likely to turn you radically far right than they are to turn you into rather than you are to turn them in any meaningful way to the left. And so they've been trying to craft this narrative that the deep state is targeting primarily right wingers ever since a handful of them got arrested at a riot they threw for Donald Trump at the Capitol. And it just doesn't map onto any measurable data, but it does map onto the constant victim complex of the right wing. And so they're very willing to believe now that they have a few of theirs in jail for a political crime, that like this is the biggest injustice that has ever occurred, and it's the primary target of the FBI, the CIA, whatever. And it's just not the case. It's completely inaccurate.
Well, they targeted small business owners who came to overturn the election. They might have an above ground pool and live in people in suburbs that the right kind of associates with, and as opposed to
above ground pools.
Well, like these Antifa, I'm just like, the point is just normal people that they associate with their base, as opposed to Antifa scary Black Lives Matter activists, where we know factually that they were targeted by the FBI with an informant in at least one instance, and more information is coming out about the rest. And we will know as time goes on. But yeah, it's all based on a lie.
Wow, that's it, huh? It's all based on a lie. It's all based on a lie. Really? It's all based on a lie? That's the end of the clip? Okay. Okay. I'm glad we found that. That was interesting. And just one more group of people that agrees with Little Big Man. And you know why? Because they're all in the same boat together. It's called the Shit Lib Express. Shit Libs, exciting and new. Come aboard. We're expecting you. Oh, and shit liberty. Life's sweetest reward. We're all hypocrites and a bunch of whores. Shit libtards. Now, soon we'll be making another run. Now, shit libtards. Da-da-da. Promise is nothing for anyone. Double negative there. Did you catch it? All right. Fuck Sam Cedar and his little fucking crew of merry cunts. They're all a bunch of fucking shit libs. And their take sucks for the most part on everything. They were right about the January 6th thing. That's about it. But anyway, I will talk to you guys later. I hope you enjoyed this show. I love you guys. And all that good stuff. Peace! Peace! You know, there's 12 of you, 13 of you here. I just wanted you all to know that. I appreciate you guys. All of you. All right. Bye-bye. Oh, yeah. Come visit me, man, on Twitter. I'm at Nays Garden, where I'm tweeting all this stuff. At Nays Garden, and for updates of the shows, at Nays Garden Show. Follow both of those accounts on Twitter. Thanks. Retweets, likes.
Be safe.
Oh, I didn't even know anybody was here. Oh, thanks. All right, cool.